Kizumonogatari by Nisio Isan, cast by Artela Studio. If you are interested in creating your own audiobooks, please check out our website app.artale.ai and sign up with promote code ARTALE for free trial. Now, enjoy the story. I suppose I need to get around to talking about Kishot Acerola-Orion Heart Underblade. I probably have a duty to do so. During the spring break between my second and third years as a high school student, I met her. It was a shocking meeting, and it was a catastrophic one. In any case, I must have had terrible luck. Of course, in the same way that I was unable to avoid that bad luck, even if I somehow had, I doubt someone else would have met that fate. It actually seems extremely irresponsible to talk about my bad luck here. Maybe I should just be upfront and say that it was my fault. In the end, I think it was a chain of events only made possible because I was me. A chain of events. Actually, while I used those words just now without giving them any particular thought, I wouldn't be able to tell you what events bookend this chain. Where this incident began, what path it took, or how it ended, I can't declare the precise truth of the matter. It could be that it has yet to end, even now, or perhaps it hasn't even started. And I say that not as a form of pretension or wordplay. That is what I honestly believe. Ultimately, I can only observe the incident from my own perspective, so I will never be able to know what that chain of events truly meant to anyone else, or what it didn't mean. Asking them may allow me to come to some degree of understanding of the circumstances, but even then, there's no way for me to know if their words are true. What I have is not the truth, but an understanding, and perhaps that's enough. But to begin with, and this is the one thing I can say definitively, such is the nature of the girl at the center of this all-Kishot Acerola-Orion Heart Underblade, someone who only holds meaning for the observer, someone whose meaning changes depending on the observer, someone whose meaning cannot be agreed upon by her observers, a vampire. Of course, I probably don't need to give you a detailed explanation of what a vampire is. Whether in comics, movies, or games, that is a vein long since mined dry. The majority of Japanese people must be closely familiar with them, even though they aren't creatures born from the culture of this country. You might call them a bit of an old notion. Still, spring break. I was attacked by a vampire, one of these notions we now consider dated twice over. You could say it was stupid. In fact, I think I was stupid. And it was due to the stupidity of none but yours truly, that I ended up experiencing 2 weeks of hell. A hell that took up the entire stretch of spring break, end to end. If it was one big joke, it sure felt like hell. If it was hell, it sure felt like one big joke. Like I said earlier, it will forever be a mystery to me when this chain of events began, where and how it transpired, and in what manner it ended. But while that may be an unsolvable dilemma, I am absolutely certain of when my own personal hell began and when it ended. March 26 to April 7th, spring break. I would come to learn that creatures such as her Kishot Acerola-Orion Heart Underblade are known as aberrations. In that case, the one thing above all others that caused me to experience hell was the fact that I observed her, at that moment, at that location, in that fashion. I was a woefully unsuitable observer. And yes, a stupid one. While telling you about her would, by necessity, entail fully exposing my own stupidity. An act you may see as masochistic. I do think I have to talk about that vampire, about the story of the wound I received from her, about the story of how I wounded her. This preamble has gotten quite long, but I'd like to ask for your understanding here. Though I've pompously gone on about responsibility and whatnot, it's merely the responsibility of a stupid jester. There's no telling when I'll founder. While it's a timid thing to say, I honestly do not have the confidence to finish telling this story. That is why I've been dragging out these proper preliminary remarks. Even so, I couldn't possibly go any longer. And after I finally begin the story, it could become like a rock rolling down a hill so that it'll be harder to stop. But to be sure, just in case it turns out that I lack the resolve, allow me to divulge how it ends here in advance. This story about a vampire has an unhappy ending. It concludes with everyone becoming miserable. And that's just the hell's ending. The chain of events may not yet be over, and in any case, my responsibility to her will be a lifelong affair. Making friends would lower my intensity as a human. I think I said something of the sort. As to when, it was right before spring break, Saturday, March 25th, in the afternoon of the day our school held its closing ceremony. I was wandering around aimlessly near the school I go to, now Itsuhai. We're talking about me, who has zero affiliation with any school club. I really was just wandering around for no reason whatsoever. If you're wondering if I was thrilled that spring break would start the next day, I was by no means excited. As a rule, students are happy about any cluster of days off. Not just spring break, but summer break, winter break, golden week, and so on. Even I was happy for the most part that our third trimester was over, and that spring break had begun. But at the same time, long vacations also meant having far more time on my hands than I knew what to do with. Especially spring break, since we don't even have homework. Staying at home would feel a bit odd. Anyway, With closing ceremonies over, I went to my classroom to receive my report card, and we were dismissed with an okay, see you next school year. But I hesitated to go straight home, yet it wasn't as if I had anywhere else to go, which meant loitering around school, like some sort of suspicious fellow. I had no particular goal. I did it less to fill time than to kill time. While I biked to school, my bicycle was actually still parked in the school lot, another expression of my intention to not go home yet. You could say I was going for a walk. Of course, I'm not the health-conscious type. While it may have seemed like a good idea to kill time inside school, if killing time is what I wanted to do, just as I found being at home odd, in its own way it was odd being at school too. Though it may have been the afternoon after closing ceremonies, a lot of people were in the middle of their club activities. I don't like people who try hard. Well, it's not like the students at my school are that enthusiastic about their clubs. The only real exception was the girls' basketball team after this monstrously huge rookie joined as the result of some sort of mistake. Most of the other clubs, even the sports teams, were the kinds of outfits that were actually happy to receive participation trophies. And that's why, well, there's not any actual reason why, after aimlessly circling around the school a few times, I had begun to think that yeah, it really is about time for me to pick up my bike from inside the school and head home. I'm hungry. After all, when I came across an unexpected individual, with it already being spring break, I frankly don't know whether to describe myself at that time as a second year or a third year, but in any case, a celebrity in my grade, Tsubasa Hanakawa, was walking straight toward me. I wondered for a moment what she was doing, with both of her hands held there behind her head, until I realized she seemed to be adjusting the position of her braid. She wore her long hair behind her in a braid. While braids themselves are already rare to begin with these days, she also wore her bangs in a straight line. She was wearing her school uniform, a completely unaltered skirt fallen 4 inches below her knees, a black scarf, a school sweater on top of her blouse as designated by school regulations, white socks and school shoes as designated by those same regulations. The very picture of a model student. A model student among model students, a class president among class presidents. She and I were in different classes during both our first and second years, so I doubted she knew who I was, but I had heard about her class presidential ways and doings. Since the rumors had gone so far to find their way to me, someone grossly ignorant of school gossip, even taken with a grain of salt, those ways and doings must have been quite something. She would no doubt continue to be class president as a third year. Plus, she had good grades. While it's an odd way to put it, I'd heard that she was freakishly smart. Getting perfect marks in all of her classes was like nothing to her. Sure, when all the students take the same test, someone ending up in first place is as much of a given as someone else ending up in last place. But for 2 years, Tsubasa Hanakawa had always maintained her spot on top. Though I had managed to get into a private prep school, Naotsu High, I soon found myself in a position that you might call left behind, which meant there was a world of difference between us. In a way, you could call us polar opposites. And so, she caught my attention for a moment. We were in different classes after all, so while I may have known of her, I rarely saw her, yet it was her who I happened to see at that moment, right after closing ceremonies had ended, and that did surprise me a little. Well, a rare coincidence, that's all. She seemed to have just left through the school gates, so upon further consideration, it wasn't that strange to come across her, considering how I'd been loitering around the school for all that time. Naturally, Hanakawa didn't even notice me. I didn't seem to be in her field of vision, as engrossed as she was in fixing the position of her braid, and had I happened to be in it, Hanakawa and I wouldn't normally so much as nod at each other, given our relationship, or lack thereof. In fact, I thought that a model student like Hanakawa probably hated people with the kind of devil-may-care attitude that I had. She was serious, and I was not. Better if she didn't know about me. I'll just let her pass by, I thought. No reason to run away either. I kept walking forward, not missing a step, as if I hadn't noticed her. And right as we were only 5 or so steps away each from passing by without incident, it happened. I doubt I'll ever forget that moment as long as I live. Out of absolutely nowhere, a gust of wind. I hadn't been able to stay silent despite myself. The front of Hanakawa's rather long pleated skirt, hanging 4 inches below her knees, flew straight up in the air. I assume that under different circumstances, she would have reflexively pushed it back down into place, but thanks to some unfortunate timing, both of her hands were behind her head, engrossed in the complex operation that was fixing the position of her braid. From where I stood, she almost looked like she was putting on a mildly affected pose, her hands clasped behind her, and it was in that situation that her skirt was flipped up. Its contents were put into plain sight. They were certainly not gaudy, but they were the kind of elegant undergarments that refused to release one's gaze once a pair of eyes was attracted to them. They were a tidy and pure white. It was not as if they were suggestively shaped. In fact, they seemed to be on the higher end of the surface area spectrum. A white article, made of thick cloth, by no means lascivious, and in fact, if one were to speak of them in that way, it would be reasonable to call them demure. Yet they were so white it was dazzling, and they were anything but plain percented view as if US plus. In the center, white string had been used to sew a complex embroidered pattern over a white canvas, no doubt intended to evoke flowers. The pattern, with its bilateral symmetry, acted to bring a sublime balance to the piece as a whole, and toward the top center of the embroidery sat a small ribbon. This one ribbon worked to further cement the impression of the whole. What's more, visible just above that small ribbon was her abdomen and her cute belly button. Yes, her skirt had been flipped so far up that those parts of her were now immodestly exposed. Had I wanted to, I could even have scrutinized the tails of her blouse, tucked into her skirt. I never knew that the shirt tails of a blouse could appear so salacious. The lining of a skirt was another fresh sight to my eyes. While I frequently caught sight of skirts, they seemed to be inviolable, mysterious existences, but I now felt as though for the very first time I understood the structure of this garment. But most of all, it was exquisite how only the front section of her skirt was flipped. Next to her pure white undergarment stood something else so proudly white it was as if the two were in competition. Her thighs, which had no small amount of meat on them. Sitting behind the two, her navy blue skirt placed them in relief and emphasized the contrast. You could say her skirt, longer than the average girl's, was now serving like a blackout curtain to accentuate a graceful work of fine art. Even the skirt's pleats came across like they might be made of a fine velvet. And when coupled with that pose of hers, her hands joined behind her head, it practically seemed as if she was showing off her vaunted underwear to me. That was how she appeared in effect. Tsubasa Hanakawa did not move so much as a finger. She must have been taken aback. She stood in that pose, allowing her skirt to stay flipped, with everything down to her expression frozen in place. In reality, I doubt that a solitary second went by, but for me it was like an hour now. It felt so long I even began to imagine that my life might reach its natural end before this glimpse was over. This is absolutely not an exaggeration. In that moment, I experienced a lifetime. My eyes were so captivated by her lower half that I felt as though my eyes were about to grow dry. Of course, I understand. The gentlemanly thing to do in this kind of situation is to avert your eyes. Of course I understand that. In most cases I probably would have done so. I even try my best to look down at my feet the entire while, if a girl happens to be in front of me when I climb the stairs. But at that moment in time I was not so polished a man that I could promptly behave in said manner, utterly unprepared, upon being visited by such a blessing out of the blue. It was like that image of Hanakawa was being burned into my retinas. If I were to die at that moment, and if my eyes were transplanted to another person, that someone would probably be haunted by visions of Hanakawa's underwear for life. That is how shocking it was, the underwear of a model student. Hold on. How long did I just go on describing a model student's panties? While I did return to my senses, by the time I did, Hanakawa's skirt was already back in place. It really had been an instant. As for Hanakawa, she still looked taken aback, and she was looking at me. She was staring at me. How was I to respond? What was I supposed to do at a time like this? I didn't see anything, you know? I tried a bald-faced lie, but my bald-faced lie received no reply from Hanakawa. She only continued to stare at me as she finally finished adjusting her braid and brought her hands down to pat her skirt a few times. Really? Now? For just a moment, she took her eyes off of me and made as if to implore heaven. Then she looked at me again and said, a bashful laugh. Wow, she laughs? What a broad-minded woman. Indeed, a class president among class presidents.
I don't know what to say.
Hanakawa kept both of her feet together as she bounded toward me, seeming to use nothing more than the joints of her knees for movement. We had been 10 steps away from each other, but now we were down to 3, a bit on the close side.
For something that's meant to hide what you don't want seen, skirts really are low security. Maybe I need the firewall of a pair of bike shorts after all?
Well, who knows? Her metaphor left me at a loss. So what did that make me, a virus? Fortunately for her, or possibly not, I'm not sure no one else was around, including any other students from Naotsu High. It was just me and Hanakawa. In other words, I was the only one to see her panties. While the fact made me feel a mild sense of superiority over the rest of mankind, let's put that aside for now.
A little while back, people liked talking about Murphy's Law. Maybe I should chalk it up to that. The front of your skirt only gets flipped when your hands are behind you. You're normally careful about the back of your skirt, but the front is actually more of a blind spot than you'd expect.
Yeah, maybe. How should I know? Or rather, yikes, how awkward. I didn't know if it was Hanakawa's intention to make me feel like she was burying me in a roundabout way, but that's how I felt. That said, and while it may not sound very convincing to you after I had looked that carefully at them, the fact that I had witnessed, even unintentionally, something that girls don't want seen, made me feel undeniably guilty. Not only that, she was being so smiley, trying to make something out of it. Please, stop. WL. Don't worry, I might have lied when I said I didn't see them, but I couldn't see them very well because they were shaded. Of course, that was another lie. I saw them ridiculously well.
Whew.
Hanakawa tilted her head to one side.
As a girl, it would make me feel much more at ease if you just said you got a good look at them if you really did.
Well, I really do wish I could say that to you, but I simply can't tell you anything but the truth.
Is that so? You can't.
Yeah, it's too bad I can't make you feel at ease. If only I could lie to you. Words from a man speaking nothing but lies for a while now.
So this feeling I have that you spent about 2 pages giving a precise description of what was under my skirt, down to the fine details, is all my imagination.
Totally your imagination. Super duper all your imagination. Until just now, I was painting a beautiful visual landscape using words pregnant with emotion. This, technically, was not a lie. Well, I should get going, I said casually, raising a hand to signal to Hanakawa that I had no intention of continuing our conversation, and began to step forward. I walked away with quick steps. I don't know. Hanakawa was probably going to head home, but I wondered if she was going to send a text message or something to her friends on her way back about how I saw her panties. While part of me doubted that a model student would do something like that, another part of me thought that she would do it precisely because she was a model student. No, Hanakawa probably didn't know my name, but she would have to at least know that we were in the same year, no? As rather overly self-conscious thoughts ran through my head, I began to slow my pace a bit when
Wait up a second.
I heard a voice from behind me. It was Hanakawa. She seemed to have chased after me, of all things.
I finally caught up to you. You're a fast walker.
Weren't you heading home?
Well, I'll go home eventually. And what about you, Araragi? Why are you heading back towards school?
She had my name down. What? It's not like I was wearing a name tag. Well, I was going back to pick up my bike.
So you bike to school?
Well, yeah. My house is a little on the far side, and… Hold on, that wasn't the issue, though it did seem like she hadn't known that I biked to school. Why do you know my name? Why do you know my name?
What? Of course I know it. We go to the same school, don't we?
The same school. She said it in the exact same way that someone might talk about knowing people in their own class. Who does that?
Well, Araragi, you might not know about someone like me, but you're pretty famous after all.
I couldn't help but go, huh? No, you're the famous one. And me, of all people? My position within Naoitsu Private High School was like that of a rock on the side of the road. I wasn't even certain if my own classmates knew my full name.
What's wrong, Araragi? Araragi, with the R written with the left radical from noun together with the first character in possibility, the 2 ra written with the good in good boy, and the gi you used to write arbor. Your given name is Koyomi, as in the character for calendar, right? So, Koyomi Araragi.
Not only did she know my full name, she knew the exact characters used to write it. Seriously? She knew my name and my face. If she had a death note, I'd be dead. Well, I was in the same position with regards to her too. You're Hanakawa. It wasn't in the way of retaliation, nor was I trying to hold my own, but what I did was to utter those words to her without even acknowledging what she'd said. You're Tsubasa Hanakawa.
Wow.
Hanakawa looked honestly and plainly surprised.
I'm amazed that you know someone like me.
Tsubasa Hanakawa, who during final exams of the first trimester of our second year got only one answer wrong, a fill in the blank, across every subject including health and PE as well as art.
What? That's... Hey... Why do you know so much about me?
Hanakawa grew only more surprised. It didn't seem to be an act.
Wait, Are you stalking me? Araragi? Makes it sound like I have too much of a persecution complex.
No, not really. It seemed as if she didn't realize she was famous. She thought she was normal. A regular girl who had nothing to recommend her but being on the serious side, was that it? Add to that the fact she was treating me like I was someone famous, and it got a little nasty, of course. I did recognize that I had somewhat of a reputation as a washout, but even so, why call her out on it? I decided to just give her a bullshit answer. I heard about you from an alien friend.
What? You have friends, Araragi?
Ask about the alien bit first. I'm not the kind of person who normally flings retorts at people I'm meeting for practically the first time, but she managed to draw one out of me. Even if she didn't intend any malice by it, what a terrible thing to say.
You're always alone, so I had the impression that you lived up in a world apart from everyone else.
You don't actually think I'm that cool, do you? She did seem to know a little bit about me, but not too much. Well, you're right that I don't have any friends, which makes you so famous that even a friendless loser knows who you are.
Stop it.
Hanekawa sounded a little bothered by this. Her, a woman who quickly shrugged off with a single embarrassed smile the contents of her skirt being exposed for the world to see.
I don't like jokes like that. Please don't make fun of me.
Oh? I decided to just nod, as objecting seemed likely to launch a full-on argument. Sheesh. The pedestrian crossing facing the school gates was red, and so I stopped there and Hanekawa stood next to me. Why follow me? Did she forget something at school?
Hey, Araragi, do you believe in vampires, Araragi?
What in God's name was she talking about? Then, a moment later, I came upon the answer. Oh, while she was acting calm, she was actually embarrassed that I'd seen her panties. That was no surprise, of course. While I was not by any means famous, Hanekawa did know who I was, and she even understood the state of my personal relationships, that I had no friends. She had probably heard rumors, and not good ones, so it wasn't strange for a model student to feel as though she'd made a slight blunder in allowing me a close-hold suspect, steadily. While she embarrassed to dispense of head, and as new friends, she had made a same to spits, Hanekawa did know who I was, and she had probably heard rumors and I came to the conclusion that she was following after me in order to deal with it. Instead of parting ways right after I'd seen her panties, she was plotting to overwrite my memories by following me and talking to me like that. Nice try, model student. Tossing out a bizarre topic like vampires wasn't going to erase my memories. What about vampires? Sure, if that was going to make her feel better, I'd play along and discuss whatever she wanted. Talking to her for a short while about a fruitless topic was a small price to pay for getting to see her panties.
Well, there have been some rumors lately that there's a vampire here in town. They say not to walk around alone at night.
What a vague and phony rumor. Why would there be a vampire in a town in the middle of nowhere like ours?
Who knows?
Vampires are foreign yokai, right?
I don't think that's exactly what they are, but go on.
Whether you walked alone or with a group of 10 people, if you had to face a vampire, I don't think the outcome would change very much.
Well, that's true.
Hanekawa let out a little laugh. A light-hearted laugh. It somehow didn't seem like the kind of laugh she'd have. I realized that I'd been feeling as though something was off for a while now. I'd imagined Hanekawa to be a more self-important type after hearing people call her a model student, a class president among class presidents and all that. If anything, she was weirdly affable.
But there have been a lot of eyewitness reports.
Eyewitness reports? Now that's funny. Round up these gentlemen?
Well, these aren't gentlemen.
She explained that it was something being said among the girls at school.
And not just the girls at our school. All the girls who go to school around here have heard about it. Actually, it's a rumor that's only spreading among the girls.
But a vampire? I was amazed that a rumor like that had taken root.
They say the vampire is a beautiful blonde woman, but with eyes so cold they make your spine freeze.
Those are really specific details, but how does that make her a vampire? Couldn't she just be a normal person who stands out because she has blonde hair? After all, we were in a boring suburban town. A town out in the sticks, away from everything else. You didn't even see people with their hair dyed brown.
But according to them, when she was under a street lamp, though her hair was blindingly bright, she didn't have a shadow.
Vampire. While the word sounded old and hackneyed to me, it wasn't as if I was that familiar with vampires. But I did recall hearing something like that. Now that she mentioned it, vampires don't cast shadows. Why was that again? Because they don't like the sun? But then, this had been at nighttime. So she was in the light of a street lamp, but it still sounded like some trick of the eye. And besides, didn't that very street lamp cry out that it was a made-up piece of scenery? Made up, or maybe just cheap?
Well, yeah.
Hanakawa agreed. Despite my churlish reaction, she didn't seem particularly offended. She was good at talking and at listening.
I think it's a ridiculous rumor, too. But it's good from a safety standpoint. Thanks to it, girls aren't walking around by themselves at night anymore.
Well, I guess you're right about that.
But personally, if there's a vampire, I'd like to meet her.
Why? It seemed as though my prediction may have been off. I'd assumed she had brought up a fruitless topic in order to erase my memories of seeing her panties, but Hanakawa was sounding a little too enthused for that to be the case. And anyway, telling a uniformed male student about a rumor that's only spreading among the girls seemed odd when I thought about it. Won't she suck your blood and kill you if you do?
Okay, I don't want to get killed. So maybe it's not accurate to say that I want to meet her. But I just thought it'd be neat if someone like that existed. An existence greater than humans.
An existence greater than humans? Like a god?
It doesn't have to be a god. Because in so many ways, where's the reward otherwise?
Without my noticing, the light had turned green, but Hanakawa and I both stood there. To be honest, not only did I have no idea what Hanakawa was saying, I didn't even know what she was trying to say. It felt almost as if her reply had nothing to do with my question.
Oh no, oh no. You know, Araragi, you're surprisingly easy to talk to. My tongue slipped and I feel like I ended up saying something that didn't make much sense just now.
Yeah, well, you don't need to worry about it.
It's strange that you don't have any friends when you're this easy to talk to. Why don't you make some?
It was a direct question. She probably didn't mean ill. I knew that much. I hesitated to give an equally direct answer. The issue wasn't my not making friends, it was my not being able to make any. Which is why I gave that answer. Making friends would lower my intensity as a human.
What? Sorry, I don't really understand.
Well, it's like... crap. I had tried to say something cool but didn't have anything to follow it up with. In other words, if I had friends, I'd have to start worrying about them, right? If my friends were hurt, I'd feel hurt too. And if they felt sad, I'd feel sad too. You end up with more weak points, so to speak. I think that's the same as becoming weaker as a person.
But you have fun when your friends have fun, and you're happy when your friends are happy, so it's not all about becoming weaker. Is it? You might gain more weak points, but you gain advantages too.
No, I'd feel envious when my friends were having fun, and jealous when they were happy.
How petty of you!
She nailed me. Leave me alone. Even if what you said was true, that would average out to 0. It wouldn't make a difference whether you had friends or not. No, there are more bad things that happen in this world than good, so it'd be a net negative in the end, wouldn't it?
Now that's a cynical thing to say.
Hanakawa took back what she said about me being easy to talk to. What a limited time evaluation, I thought. But that was fine. It's best to clear up those kinds of misunderstandings as soon as possible. You see, I want to become a plant.
A plant?
That way I wouldn't have to talk. Or walk, either.
But you still want to be a living thing.
Huh?
In that case, you normally say that you want to become something inorganic, like stone or iron.
I felt as if something unexpected had been pointed out to me. I wasn't lying, I had honestly felt for a long time that I wanted to become a plant, but I hadn't anticipated a counterargument from that angle. I see. Inorganic, huh? She was right. Plants are alive.
I was thinking of going to the library.
Hmm?
Oh, I was talking to you. I started to feel like I wanted to go to the library.
What sort of mental circuitry was I dealing with? She did say that she was going to go home eventually, so she must not have had any particular plans. While she had time, just as I did, you could either kill it wandering around outside of school or go to the library. Maybe that was the wall separating the flunkies from the model students.
It'll be closed tomorrow because it's a Sunday, so I need to go by there today.
Hun,
Do you want to come with me?
Why? The library. I didn't even know we had one of those things in our town. What you going to do at the library?
What else? Study.
What else? Sorry, but I'm not enough of an oddball to study on my own during spring break when we don't even have homework.
But we'll be taking entrance exams only next year, you know?
Entrance exams. Just graduating seems like a shaky prospect for me. It's too late for me, I'm a lost cause. The most I can do is try not to be late for school too often next year. Hanekawa mumbled, almost as if bored. Why, I wondered. It couldn't be that she wanted me to come with her. But Hanekawa didn't say anything more. Oh well. I knew she wasn't some proud self-important character, but I didn't know what she was. The light had been going from red to green to red again. Now it was red. I thought that next time it turned green would be when I should leave. Yes, that would be the perfect time. I was sure Hanekawa thought the same. She wasn't someone who couldn't suss the mood.
Araragi, do you have a cell phone?
Well, yeah. Of course,
Can I borrow it?
she asked, then held out her hand. I didn't know what she was planning on, but I obliged, taking my phone out of my pocket and handing it to Hanekawa.
Oh, isn't this a new model?
I upgraded just the other day. It's my first new one in 2 years, so it has all these new features I don't even know how to use.
You're still young, don't be so pathetic. If you're saying things like that now, civilization is going to pass you by all the more once you become an adult. If you're already on the wrong side of the digital divide, you won't even be able to live a decent life in the future.
Well, in that case, I guess I'll have to go live up in a mountain somewhere. Then, once civilization crumbles, I'll come back to this town.
Exactly how long do you plan on living?
Was I immortal? Or what? She sighed. Moments after our exchange, Hanekawa began messing with my phone. While she may have been a class president among class presidents, the very picture of a model student, she was still a high school girl, and thus ridiculously fast at typing on a phone. It wasn't as if my phone contained any kind of personal information that I didn't want other people's phones, alright? Or, I wondered, could she actually be suspecting me of having used my phone's camera to sneak a picture when her skirt was flipped? If so, I wanted her to scour the thing. I wanted to wipe out such a disgraceful suspicion. But at any rate, it must be hard being a girl worrying about so many things all the time. If a guy had his fly open, all he had to do was claim that he was being a sexy commando or something. Or maybe not.
Thanks. Here, you can have it back.
Hanekawa returned my phone to me in no time at all. No pics, right?
Pics?
Nothing. Oops, had I misread her? Then what exactly had she been up to? Hanekawa seemed to pick up on my puzzlement, because she pointed to the phone that I still held, unable to return it to my pocket, and said,
I put my number and email address in there.
You did what?
Too bad for you. You just made a friend.
And then, before I could say a single word in response, she ran to the other side of the crossing. The light had turned green without my noticing. That was how I was planning on leaving, and now it felt like she'd stolen my thunderweight. Wasn't she going to go to the library? No, since she'd decided to go to the library mid-conversation with me. Her heading in the opposite direction now wasn't strange at all. When she crossed to the other side, Hanekawa turned back to me and waved a "see you later." I reflexively returned her wave. Once she saw me waving my hand like an idiot, I assume, she turned back around, made a right in front of the school gate, and walked off in a cheerful mood. She soon turned the corner and went out of sight. After I was sure she was gone, I checked my phone to see it was true. Tsubasa Hanekawa had been registered in my contacts list, a phone number, and an email address. I had never used the contacts feature on my phone before. I remembered all the numbers I needed, though I don't say this to brag about my memory. It's not something I could brag about, since the only ones I had memorized were my home phone number and my parents' cell phone numbers. My sent and received call history was enough for any others. I simply didn't have many friends, and that's how Tsubasa Hanekawa became the first number to be registered on my phone. What's her deal? Her actions hovered beyond my comprehension. A friend? Is that what she said? A friend? Did she mean it? To begin with, while we may have known each other's names, what was a young lady like her doing casually handing her contact info out to a guy she'd basically spoken to for the first time? Or was I just being old-fashioned about this? I didn't know, but as much as I didn't know, there was one thing I did know now. Tsubasa Hanekawa, the model student among model students, the class president among class presidents, not only wasn't a stuck-up self-important character, she's pretty damn cool, a class president among class presidents. Tsubasa Hanekawa. It was her, whom I happened to cross the afternoon of closing ceremonies, that I would meet again during spring break, though I had no way of knowing it at the time. I didn't even feel a sliver of a premonition. And then night came. That day's incident still fresh in my mind. Night. I was walking around the town after it had become totally dark. While I'd walked, not biked, around school for no particular reason earlier, I now had a clear motive. I own 2 bicycles, by the way. One is a granny bike that I use to go to school, the other is my pet mountain bike. The latter is my companion to such a degree that I wish I could ride it everywhere. Yet at that precise moment, I could not. If my securely locked bicycle, stored in the entrance of my house, was gone, someone in my family would notice that I had left the house. Putting aside when I was younger, my family's current approach to me could be described as completely hands-off. You could even say that they've decided to neglect me. So unlike my 2 little sisters, I don't have anything like a curfew or a ban on going outside at night, not that my sisters care about such rules, but there are times when I want to go out without my family knowing. For example, when I want to go buy a porn mag. No. It won't be a pleasant sight, but allow me to defend myself. I couldn't get the image of Hanekawa's panties I had seen that afternoon out of my head. Am I digging my grave in quicksand here? Either way, that was the truth. Though I said that I would likely never forget the image, I didn't actually expect it to get seared in my memory so vividly. Even after I parted ways with Hanekawa that afternoon, her panties stayed with me, never leaving my mind. I had thought at the time that were my retinas to be transplanted to another person. That person would suffer hallucinations of Hanekawa's panties. Over 10 hours later, my hypothesis still obtained. Damn it. I was sure we'd talked about a lot of things after that, so what was I to make of the fact that her panties had left the strongest impression? While my memories of those panties refused to recede, I'd forgotten nearly everything else. This, when she was cool, Hanekawa was a cool person. That fact only added to a guilt that I had no business bearing. It needled my heart. Hanekawa was so cool, yet the feelings that I harbored toward her bordered on lust. But then again, I wondered, how long had it been since I've last seen panties in the wild? While Naotsu High may be a prep school, half of its students are still high school girls. Some of them wear their skirts short for fashion reasons. While there were close shaves where I got glimpses, I probably hadn't seen panties worn on a girl in such a naked and perfect form, even in middle school. Thinking back to elementary school, well, no point in counting those. Then it was for the first time in my life, it had felt like an 80s rom-com manga or something. And in a way I hadn't even imagined, a flag had popped up for me. Like in a dating sim, over Tsubasa Hanekawa, a girl I'd assumed stood beyond my sphere of connections. Damn it. Wasn't that foul play? As in, I doubt a girl who saw a boy's underwear would start feeling the way I did. No fair. Of course, while I likened it to a sign popping up over her head, on further consideration all that had happened was that the 2 of us passed by each other. We hadn't even truly met. Surely Hanekawa didn't even remember talking to me a little past noon that day, so there really was no need for me to feel guilty. But anyway, as I finished my dinner, I began to think that I couldn't leave things as they were. When I realized that I might be living with a guilty conscience for a long time, perhaps for the rest of my life, I shivered. A cool person. And even if she wasn't, as friends. See, I thought, this is why I hate having them. My intensity as a human had dropped considerably. I was having to worry about this, and that's why once it was completely dark outside my window, I put the studying sign on the door and snuck out of the house. To buy a dirty magazine from the one place in town you could call a major bookstore. I completed my mission and began to head home, having bought 2. Naturally, I never tried to do something as unmanly plus PN to add buy a dirty magazine together with a regular book to put on a show for the bookstore employee. I'd buy 2 magazines rather than do such a thing. That's the kind of man I am. If Hanekawa is a class president among class presidents, I'm a man among men. Though I do check to make sure there isn't anyone I know in the store. At least, anyway. My plan was to read the dirty magazine so thoroughly that the images in my head would be overwritten. It was my own take on the idea Hanekawa must have had when she'd come chasing after me. While I ended up thinking that Hanekawa's ruse never had a chance of working, though I now realize that probably wasn't her intention, overriding one dirty thought with another was certainly a plan. Erasing a memory might be impossible, but overriding it maybe wasn't. The issue was that it was the only one, unique if it was one among many, that its presence would fade as a result. There had to be a large difference between naked flesh and photos, but quantity could make up for that. Taking the nature of the earlier situation into account, both of the magazines I purchased had a primary focus on high school girls and their underwear. Since I had already bought a number of dirty magazines in the beginning of March, spending any more was a burden on my wallet. To be honest, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Better a wallet ache than a headache. I didn't have a choice in this matter. I couldn't allow myself to keep having such indecent thoughts about Hanekawa. The guilt would kill me. People talk about dying of boredom, but guilt can kill you too. Oh, boy. If only she'd just smacked me then and there. Still, friends, it's not like I need them or anything, I muttered, holding the paper bag with the 2 magazines in one hand and my phone in the other, checking through its contacts list. Still, being told that kind of thing made me think, when did I get this way? I want to say I played well with others in middle school, to say nothing of elementary school. In that case, was it after I entered high school and turned into a slacker? How simple. I overreached in picking high schools, got in by mistake, fell behind, and didn't see things the way those around me did. Because I had failed, no one that really at that middle-level air. Even then, I must have had a chance to fix things. My grades may have been poor, but it wasn't as if I was being discriminated against, and I wasn't despised. I should have had more than enough opportunities to make friends. The party that was rejecting those opportunities was none other than myself. Sometimes, I just don't know. I don't want friends, but is that just me making excuses for myself for not having friends? Friends. It's not as if I can't live without them. People without friends can just hang out without friendless people. Really, it isn't as if I'm alone, to give an extreme example. This guy who was in my class both my first and second years rarely talked to anyone at all as far as I could tell. So it's fine. That's one way of living your life. But I don't feel like I want to make friends, and I certainly don't feel like I want a girlfriend. But why is it that I can't stop having dirty thoughts? Such a mystery. A single pair of panties had shaken me so profoundly that I was ultimately moved to contribute to the circulation of currency. Didn't I know that it was basically just a piece of cloth? Before, I'd wondered, why do girls go out of their way to wear those things and gussy themselves up? What are they? Perverts. But I'd had it the wrong way around. It's not like you can't buy those. No, wait. Buying a used pair? That would be a crime. Even if it's not technically a crime, it's downright criminal. God, I wish I could turn into a plant. Then I wouldn't have anything to do with these desires. But turning into stone or iron? I've never wished it, nor could. Is that just another way of being small as a person? This late already. Though I'd intentionally leapt into the bookstore right before closing time, it was quite late after all of the wandering around I'd done. In fact, the date on the calendar had changed. It was already March 26th. Spring break had officially started. I put my phone back in my pocket and began to hurry home, my pace quick. The large bookstore I had gone to was farther from my home than what I would normally consider walking distance. In fact, locationally it wasn't too far from school. I had more or less walked a distance that I normally biked. Of course it took time, but I'd taken a little too much time. I had no reason to get home early, but still, I couldn't be too late. There was always the chance my little sisters would barge into my room without asking too. Knowing those two, they were apt to put everything together if they saw that I wasn't at home but my bicycle was. They're perceptive when it comes to that kind of thing. Speaking of which, I suppose I've seen my little sister's underwear before. They walk around in them after getting out of the bath, after all. But I guess that doesn't count. Putting that aside, whether or not I was at risk of being discovered, it was late enough to be even darker out than when I'd left home. It'd be idiotic if I got myself hit by a car. I think all guys share this anxiety. We are never more careful on our way home from buying a dirty magazine than on any other itinerary. I mean, what if you got in an accident and your belongings were inspected? A primary focus on high school girls and their underwear. If Hanakawa somehow managed to find out about it, of course she'd Naokabe is in mid-addiction. But that's not it. If anything, this is a way to safeguard your chastity from me. No, that's not my intention at all. Well, to be honest, this kind of pointless suspense is more fun than anything else. I couldn't deny that it was dangerous to be out as dark as it was, but I lived in a sleepy town. There were few cars on the road to begin with, and they were easy to spot with their headlights. So my fear was irrational, but that said, wasn't it a little too dark? I looked up toward the sky and I realized why. There was no light coming from the street lamps. The lamps that were installed every 15 feet were barely emitting any light, actually less than barely. Only one was lit. Were they broken? But so many of them couldn't go out of service at once. Was it a power outage then? But in that case, it didn't make sense for just one to still be on. And while I thought this, I continued walking with the vague notion that these things happen, no point in giving it too much. I said earlier that I had no reason to hurry home, but come to think of it, my mission required that I return as soon as possible to peruse the publications I'd purchased. My mission had utmost priority.
Yea.
And that's why...
Hail, yea, thither.
I, thee.
And that's why, even if someone called out to me like that, I'd ignore it and keep Pedya? Who in this day and age called out like that? Despite my intentions, I reacted. I looked in the direction of the voice, and it was when I did that I was truly struck speechless. Illuminated? Under the one working street lamp was she.
It shall be thy privilege to aid me.
Her blonde hair looked completely incongruous for our provincial town. Her well-defined face, her cold eyes. She wore a chic dress on her, and it too seemed incongruous. No, in the case of the dress I mean it in a different way. Surely once elegant and refined, it was now anything but. Ripped to pieces, torn asunder. It seemed like a tattered piece of fabric in such bad condition that even a dust cloth might look more proper, though to look at it another way. The fact that the dress still exuded a sense of its original extravaging. They should have ever cut of to look at times of ouchad.
Can ye not hear me? I am telling thee that it shall be thy privilege to aid me.
She was staring at me. I felt as though my body might freeze in her sharp, cold glare, but perhaps there was no need to be that afraid. After all, she seemed to be dead tired. Leaning on the lamp for support, she lay sitting on the paved asphalt. No, lay sitting isn't right, either. It would be better to say that she'd collapsed. Glaring at me was all she was capable of. Or rather, even if she hadn't been exhausted, hadn't collapsed, she probably couldn't have held me with anything beyond a glare. To begin with, she had no hands with which to hold me. Her right arm from around the elbow, her left arm from the joint of its shoulder, each had been lopped off. Oh! And that was not all. Her body was in a similar state below her torso, her right leg from around the knee, her left leg from the base of its thigh. Each had been severed. Well, only the right leg showed an exceptionally sharp cut. I could see a clear cross-section. It looked nothing like the disgusting, torn state of the other wounds on the right arm, and left leg. But the exact state of the cross-sections was trivial. To put it simply, she had lost every one of her 4 limbs, and it was in this state that she had collapsed under the street lamp. Forget about tired. What she was dying. Hi. Hey, are you okay? They speak of your heart ringing like an alarm bell. I had always thought that to be a figure of speech, but it was exactly how it felt at that moment. My heart rang so hard it hurt. My heart was running wild. As if it was trying to alert me to an impending crisis. Like an alarm bell. I'll get an ambulance right away. She wasn't bleeding nearly as much as someone whose limbs had been severed should be. But at the time, my mind could not process even that fact. I took out the phone I just stored back in my pocket but was too jittery to press the right buttons. Wait, what was the number for an ambulance? 117? 115? Damn it, I should have put it in my contacts if this was going to happen.
An ambulance! I have no need of such.
She, though every one of her limbs had been severed, still conscious, she addressed me in her forceful, dated manner.
Instead, give me thy blood.
My fingers froze on the keypad, and then I remembered my conversation with Hanakawa early in the afternoon, a rumor that was only spreading among the girls. What was it again? What did we talk about again? Night. Something about night, and not walking around alone, and blonde hair. Blonde hair. In the light of the street lamp, that blonde hair seemed dazzlingly bright, and also, no shadow, with none of the other street lamps in the area working, and under the only one lit, she seemed to be basking in the spotlight atop a stage blonde hair truly bedazzling, but really, she had no shadow. Not a shadow didn't capture it. No shadow for real. And she said,
My name is Kishshot Acerola-Orion Heart, Hunderblade, the iron-blooded, hot-blooded, yet cold-blooded vampire.
Her clothes tattered, her body limbless, but her tone domineering. Beyond her parted lips were 2 sharp fangs. Sharp fangs.
I shall consume thy blood as mine own flesh, so give me thy blood.
Isn't a vampire supposed to be immortal?
I've lost too much blood. Neither regeneration nor transformation is possible for me in this state. Unless something is done, I will die. A worthless human such as thee should be honored to become my flesh and blood.
My legs wouldn't stop shaking. What in the world was going on? What in the world was I getting dragged into? Why did a vampire suddenly appear in front of me to be dying already? That which is not supposed to exist, a vampire existing. That which is not supposed to die, a vampire dying. What kind of reality was this?
Hey! What is the matter? Thou hast the privilege of rescuing me. Is there any greater honor? Ye need not do a thing present me with thy neck, and I shall do the rest.
Be blood? Can't you settle for a transfusion or something? It was not a very thought-out question, even by my own standards. What was I trying to say? Was I kidding? She, Kishshot, Acerola-Orion hardener blade, must have thought the same and didn't reply. No, she just might have lacked the energy to reply. How much do you need?
For the time being, I will be tided over with thy body's worth.
Oh, just my body's. Wait! But that'd kill me. I almost shot back at her like the straight man in a comedy routine, but swallowed my words. Her eyes had given me pause. Cold eyes, eyes looking at food. She wasn't being the funny man and was quite serious. Worthless human. She was on the verge of death and was trying to survive by eating me. She wasn't seeking my assistance. She just wanted to prey on me, to survive all on her own. You know. Right. What was I thinking and doing? How absurd. We're talking about a vampire, all right? In other words, a monster. Who knew how she'd lost her limbs and ended up nearly dead there, but it couldn't be for any respectable reason. What good would come of getting mixed up in it? Discretion is the better part of valor, no? Why venture when there's nothing to gain? She wasn't human, an existence greater than humans. That's how Hanakawa put it.
What is the matter? Thy blood. Give me thy blood. Hurry, hurry up. Why do ye dally, laggard?
Faced with this vampire who spoke as though I would oblige as a matter of course, never dreaming to do otherwise, my feet took a step back. I'd be okay. If I ran, I could probably get away. It didn't matter if she was a vampire, a monster. Her arms and legs had been torn off, and I'd get away. She probably couldn't even chase after me. I just needed to run. The same thing that I've always done was all I needed to do to reject this reality too.
BS.
Her eyes grew weak and frail, as if the ice they had held until moments ago had never been there at all.
Ye failed to aid me?
A monster, in a tattered dress, limbs cruelly shorn, shadowless even under a street lamp. But I thought her, with her blonde hair, beautiful. As pretty. I was drawn to her. From the bottom of my heart, I couldn't take my eyes off of her, and I couldn't take another step away. Not because I was cowering in fear, or because my body wouldn't stop shaking. I just couldn't move.
No way!
Her haughty diction crumbled, and from her eyes, the same color as her hair, golden overflowed large tears. Like a child, she began to sob.
No way! No way! No way! I don't want to die! 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 Help me! Help me! Help me! Please, please, if you help me, I'll do anything you say if you help me.
She screamed, painfully, unabashedly, as if I wasn't there. Uncontrollably, she cried and screamed. She bawled.
I can't die. I can't die. I don't want to disappear. I don't want to vanish. No. Somebody, 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 somebody.
Who? Nobody would ever help a vampire. No matter how much she cried or screamed, I couldn't let myself be moved. I mean, I'd die. A body's worth of blood? I'd always been too scared even to donate any. It's just this kind of thing that I hated, right? I hate being burdened by other humans, so a monster? The weight was too much for me to even imagine carrying. Just try having a vampire as your burden. See how much your intensity as a human drops then?
Whoa!
Her tears began to turn blood red. I couldn't say, but it seemed to signal death. A vampire's death. Tears of blood.
I'm sorry. 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 I'm sorry.
Finally, her words had turned from plea to apology. What was she apologizing for? Who was she apologizing to? Whatever the case, I couldn't bear to watch her apologizing like that, for reasons unknown and to an unknown being. I had a feeling she probably wasn't supposed to be doing that. A being like her wasn't supposed to die so miserably. At that late stage, I let out a yell and began to run. I forced my immobile legs into action, turning my back to her with all my heart and all my strength. I took off running. I could still hear her voice behind me, apologizing. Was I the only one hearing her voice? Might someone else not go there, summoned by it? Kishad Acerola-Orion, Heart Underblade? Wouldn't someone try to help her? Of course not. They would die. And in any case, she was a monster, a vampire. No need to help her, right? Of course I know that. I slammed the paper bag I'd been carrying into the garbage collection area I'd come to. The paper bag holding the 2 dirty magazines. You're supposed to take your trash out in the morning, but there was no garbage collection on Sundays to begin with. My chucking them there nonetheless was a minimal show of conscience. Some lucky middle school kid would probably come and pick them up. It seemed like a waste, but I didn't need them anymore. If anything, they'd be a nuisance. How could I be holding on to dirty magazines when I was about to head to my death? Ah! A guy had to be more careful on his way home from buying a dirty magazine than on any other itinerary had I not known that damn well. My intensity as a human had plummeted and crashed. As I began to head back and return to that street lamp, tears began to fall from my eyes too. My parents. My two little sisters. As someone who had avoided human contact, those were about the only people who came to mind, and the fact that there were only 4 of them was enough on its own to make me cry. It's not as if my family was particularly close, especially after I began high school and started to fall behind. A weird, unbridgeable gap seemed to yawn open between me and my parents. I didn't dislike them or hate them. It must have been the same for them too. Simply, a gap had formed. These things happened during adolescence. I'd explained it to myself that way. But if I knew this was going to happen, I'd have talked to them more, snuck away, and went missing, eh? My sisters would probably deduce that something had happened to me on the way home from buying dirty magazines, even though I'd thrown them away. Oh well, even they wouldn't air our family's dirty linen. I loved you, Miss Sirs. I wiped away my tears. Hey, come to think of it, not having many people to remember was a good thing. If I had friends or something, I'd run out of time. In fact, the choice I was now making seemed possible only because I hadn't built any relationships beyond family, and so I returned to the street lamp. The blonde vampire was still there, just as I had left her. She wasn't even crying anymore. She wasn't screaming anything either. Though she was sniffing and hiccuping, she seemed to have given up. Don't give up, stupid! I ran over to her as I screamed the words, leaned in, and then I thrust out my own neck. You'll do the rest, I take it?
Huh?
She opened her eyes. Surprise overtook her face.
So you're good with it?
Of course I'm not. Damn it, bastard. Bastard, bastard. Why? How did things end up this way? How? Of course I know how. It's because I've wasted my whole life not doing a single worthwhile thing. There isn't a single reason for me to bother staying alive, not a single reason for me to value my own life over someone else's. The world wouldn't care one bit if I died. Neither beautiful nor pretty. If that was my life, then to allow this beautiful thing to live, shouldn't the choice be for me to die? Wasn't that the logical conclusion? I was but a worthless human. The vampire was a greater creature, wasn't it? I swear, I'll make something better of my next life. I'll be reborn as someone who's glib, who dances around relationships, who doesn't feel guilty over every little detail, who can leave things to chance without having to worry so much, who doesn't feel any doubts about insisting on getting his way, and who's able to blame everything bad in his life on others. And that's why. I'll help you. Suck my blood. I'll give it all to you. Don't leave a drop behind, wring me dry.
Thank you.
A sharp pain ran through my neck, and I realized that I had been bitten by her. I instantly began to lose consciousness, and with my last wisp of awareness I remembered. Tsubasa Hanekawa. Her. If I had friends or something, I could run out of time. Okay? Now, that was close. If I'd thought about her just a little earlier, I might not have made it talk about annoying. Well, fine. We'd spent no more than 10 short minutes together. But if I was going to die embracing my recollections of coming across Hanekawa, that wasn't so bad. And no, in this case, I don't mean my recollections of Hanekawa's underwear. Seriously, what kind of way to go would that be? Let me act cool in my final moments, at least. And so, that is how I, Koyomi Araragi, after 17 years and change, met my abrupt, unannounced, and unexpected end, or should have. I snapped back into consciousness. It honestly felt as though I had been reborn. Or rather, as if I had been revived. Oh, it was all a dream. I tried and yelled. Of course, it wasn't a dream. If it had been a dream, I'd have come to in my room. But this was not my room. In fact, it was a place I'd never seen before. My little sisters, who woke me up every morning, were not there either. Still, I wanted to try going back to sleep again and again until I finally got the "it was all a dream" ending. What was this place? An abandoned building. I knew I was inside some sort of man-made structure, but thick boards had been nailed across the windows to shut them tight, and all the fluorescent lights hanging from the ceiling had been shattered, without exception. I turned my attention to my posture. I seemed to be lying down. The floor was made of linoleum, but was horribly cracked. I moved just my head around to get a look at my surroundings. What was that thing on the wall? A blackboard? And? So this was a school, but it couldn't be Natsuhai. I could tell that much. And it didn't really feel like a school. I was, after all, a high school student. Though it wasn't my school, I could at least tell if I was actually in one, regardless of all the trappings. What was it then? What kind of place other than a school had a blackboard and tons of desks and chairs? Then I understood. The atmosphere, it was a cram school. This had to be a cram school building. But judging by how the place looked, it couldn't be in use. The windows, the lights, maybe it had gone bankrupt? Or did it just look that way because it was so dim and dim? Why was I in a room with blocked windows that not a single beam of light seemed to enterable to see so clearly? I could tell it was dark. It definitely didn't seem bright. I shouldn't have been able to see the tip of my own nose, it was that dark. But I could see. I could see clearly, but maybe there was nothing to it. Were my senses a little confused because I'd just woken up, wondering I raised my body of that. Oh. I'd bitten the inside of my mouth. Huh? Wait, were my canines always this long? I stuck a finger inside my mouth to see what was going on, and, moving my arm in order to move my finger, I realized, only then, that my splayed arm was being used as a pillow by a little sleeping girl. A little girl? Wah! Indeed, a little girl. She seemed to be about, 10 years old. A blonde girl wearing a fluffy dress that matched her, her skin so far beyond white that it seemed translucent, exhaling tiny breaths. She was fast asleep. All of it was baffling. Why was I there, where was I, and who exactly was this blonde girl? Not a single thing made sense, but I was certain that I was in a bad spot. That she was a little girl wasn't bad on its own, but when you start talking about unfamiliar little girls, things really start to sound criminal. Hey, wake up. I tried shaking the safest spots on the blonde girl's body that I could think of, like her upper arm. When I did, the blonde girl began to groan with apparent displeasure.
Just 5 more minutes.
Such a scripted reply, little blonde girl. She turned in her sleep as if she was annoyed. See, come on, I said. Wake up. I continued to shake the blonde girl's body, paying no mind to her reaction.
Just more minutes.
How much longer is that?
4.6 billion years or so.
That'd be enough time for another Earth. As soon as I yelled my retort at her, I put my hands to my mouth in a hurry. Right. Come to think of it, if I did wake her up, wouldn't I be worse off? Clearly searching for a solution on my own was the best course of action. Of course, speaking of solutions, I didn't even know what my problem was. I decided to start off by looking at the wristwatch on my left arm. Let's see. The time was 4:30. No good. I couldn't tell whether it was morning or evening for my wristwatch. I searched around for my phone back alas. The time on its screen stated that it was actually 16:32. The date was March 28th. I thought back to the last time I checked my phone for the same reason, and back then the date had just changed and hadn't it become March 26th? 2 whole days had gone by? No. Even if it wasn't a dream, how much of that was true, I wondered. Those memories, how accurate were they? I gently pulled my arm from under the girl's head, careful not to wake her. My first goal seemed to be to figure out where I was. Sneaking, I headed toward the door of the classroom, which was unlocked. Well, it was more like it was off of one of its hinges, making it a very shabby excuse for a door. This dispelled my fear that I was being imprisoned in a mysterious facility. It may seem ridiculous, but I was actually quite worried about that possibility. Sure, a cute little blonde girl, but what gain could there possibly be in kidnapping me? As I exited the door, I immediately noticed the stairs. A marker by the floor read 2F. The second floor? There were stairs leading both up and down. I thought for a moment about which to take, but the common sense choice was the first floor. First and foremost, I had to get out of the building. On the other side of the stairs was what appeared to be an elevator, but I didn't have to approach it to know that it didn't work. I climbed down the stairs. Okay, Hanekawa's number and email address is in my phone's contacts list, so I did run into her after the closing ceremony. And my memories before that must be fine too. So those panties were no dream. Even if it was like a dream. I have less money in my wallet and I have a receipt, so I definitely bought those youth-oriented magazines on women's fashion too. Though my memories were slightly altered, I pretended not to notice, and continued. But what happened after that just doesn't seem like it could be real. Even if it wasn't all a dream, maybe I'd misrecognized what had happened. For example, there was an injured woman who had been hit by a car. And I was so surprised when I saw her that I passed out on the spot. It was a bit of a stretch, but I had to start somewhere. After that, someone carried me here when I fainted, and nope, no imaginative tinkering could make sense of it. You'd just call an ambulance, but the time displayed on my cell phone had to be real. Crap, I hadn't been home for 2 days and it would feel to them like 3. While it wasn't my first time staying out overnight without permission, 3 days was stretching it. Compared to my little sister's wild behavior, 3 days out seemed altogether cute, but I needed to at least call home as soon as possible. At that point, I was still entertaining such optimistic thoughts. The moment I stepped outside of the building, they were dashed. Avoiding rubble and metal and glass fragments and junk like strange signs, cans, and even cardboard boxes strewn about my feet. But really, why was I able to see so well in the dark? I exited into an audaciously overgrown field of grass, and it happened as soon as I left the building. My body, from head to toe burst into flames. I should have known. Why, despite it being late enough to call evening, the sun seemed so incredibly bright. But it was already too late. My body was on fire, happened in the dashes of no I by feet and de metal by fate. Ah, ah. My shriek didn't even sound like a voice. Pain wasn't the word. My hair, my skin, my flesh, my bones, all of me was on fire. I was combusting at an incredible speed. Oh, Vampires are weak to the sun? Vampires, creatures of darkness, are weak to the sun, And that's why they don't have shadows. But what does that have to do with—
You fool!
The voice echoed from inside the building as I rolled on the ground, making full use of any and all knowledge I possessed about flames engulfing my body. I recalled reading somewhere that doing this would work. I looked with blazing eyes that didn't have an ounce of moisture left, looked in the direction of the voice, and there found the blonde girl who had been asleep until just moments ago.
Get thee here at once.
It was well and good for her to say that, but the pain was so extreme that my body wasn't behaving as I wanted it to, and the blonde girl must have seen this because she braced and leapt out of the building. No sooner than she did, her body burst into flames, but she seemed to not even mind, and running to my side and holding me up by my armpit, she began to drag me right along the ground. All as her body was covered in flames, she dragged me right along the ground. She didn't seem to be all that strong. Her strength was that of a regular child. She deserved some praise given how slender her arms were, but they weren't strong enough to hold me up. All she could do was drag me with her body in blazes. It was quite a feat to muster that much strength while on fire, but it took the girl a fair amount of time to drag me back into the building, or in other words, into the shade, where the sun's rays didn't reach. But what really surprised me was what happened next. My body. The moment we entered the shade, the flames that engulfed both my body and the blonde girl's disappeared as if by magic. And that wasn't all, our bodies didn't even have burns on them. Despite those raging fires, our clothes weren't even scorched. Not my hoodie, not my camouflage pants. In fact, they didn't seem so much as frayed. Likewise for the blonde girl's fluffy dress. Whoa. What?
Honestly, what sort of dunce runs out under the sun with no warning? I take my eyes off of thee for a moment and look at what ye do. Have ye a death wish? Any average vampire would have evaporated in the blink of an eye.
What?
Never go into the daylight again. With thy immortality turned to a curse, you'll be stuck in an eternal loop burn. Recover, burn, recover. Thy powers of recovery, exhausting themselves, or the sun setting, whichever comes first, ye'd live through hell. If an undead vampire could be said to live.
What? A vampire? So it really wasn't a dream or some misunderstanding. You mean your blonde hair, dress, and those cold eyes? No, I thought. There was a huge age difference. While it may have been hard for me to make an accurate guess because the woman I'd encountered was fighting off death, I'd still say she looked, 27 or so. She was clearly different from this 10 or so year old girl. Plus, her limbs, her right arm, her right leg, her left leg, the blonde girl had them all. A 10-year-old girl's limbs, straight and thin. She was clearly different from that limbless woman. But they had some traits in common. The white fangs I saw inside her mouth every time she spoke, for example.
Indeed, I am Kishat Acerola-Orion, Hard Underblade. You may call me Hard Underblade.
She followed this up with a terrifying statement.
400 years have passed since I last created a thrall, and this was but my second time, yet it seems to have went well, judging by those regenerative powers. No sign of going into a frenzy either. Either ye spent quite some time asleep, I was beginning to worry.
Thrall?
Indeed, and as a result, ye've... Now that I think of it, I've yet to hear thy name. Ah, but what difference does that make? Thy past name henceforth has no meaning to thee. Be that as it may, servant, welcome to the world of the night.
And so, that is how I, Koyomi Araragi, after 17 years and change, met my abrupt, unannounced, and unexpected end, or should have. But didn't. In a sense, though, my life really had come to an end. No wonder it had felt like I'd been reborn. Because I'd literally come back to life. A vampire. A vampire. Movies or games, one of those notions we now consider dated twice. Over. But despite that, and despite being a high school student, I was fairly ignorant when it came to vampires. Or rather, I didn't know anything about them. The extent of my knowledge was that they're blood-sucking demons that don't like the sun and don't cast shadows, and even that I'd only recalled while talking to Hanakawa. What else, I thought? Oh yeah, did they hate garlic? I wasn't sure. Which is why I didn't know that when a vampire sucks someone's blood, that person turns into a vampire. Having your blood sucked makes you one of them. Having your blood sucked makes you a thrall. I hadn't known that I'd be forced to quit being human. One of them. A thrall. I'd assumed the result would be death. That was the logical outcome of giving away all of the blood in your body, and I had offered her my neck ready to die. But this? I was hardly prepared to be a vampire. But there was no point in saying so now, no point in crying over sucked blood. I'd been wrung dry of bloodbire, and preposterously had become a vampire. There was no need for me to prove it to myself. My body burst into flames under the sun. My body recovered in moments despite having burst into flames. My eyes could see well in the dark, and the canines in my mouth fangs. Clear evidence, proof enough. There was no need for me to search in vain for my shadow. Wait, where am I? However, I, Koyomi Araragi, loser and chicken, not wanting to face the truth, started off with a softball question. Second floor. The two of us had returned together to the room where I regained consciousness. I seemed to be right about it being an abandoned building of some sort at least, but the only room across all 4 of its floors where the windows were closed off with thick boards. In other words, where sunlight wouldn't come in, was this one. Yeah, even if I was able to regenerate, I still wanted to avoid going up in flames. What was the word she used again? Evaporate.
Moo, they call it a cram school, though it seems to have gone out of business a number of years ago. Now it's nothing more than an abandoned building, convenient for concealing ourselves as we have been.
Huh. So it really was a cram school, and I was right about it being abandoned too. But concealing ourselves? Get off it. That made it sound like we were in hiding. She'd chosen a place out of the public sight just so she could watch over me while I was unconscious. Right? Okay, Kishot. My next question is...
Stop! I said to call me Heart Under Blade.
But that's way too long. Heart Under Blade? I feel like I'm going to bite my tongue twice just saying it. You don't want to mess up saying someone's name, right? Kishot is shorter and easier to say. Or am I not supposed to call you that?
If ye be fine with it, then 'tis fine. I have no reason to deny thee.
What an odd way of putting it. Oh, but if it wasn't a Japanese name, then was Kishot her first name? In that case, it'd be weird if I suddenly started calling her that. But did such common sense rules of human conduct apply to vampires?
And what is thy next question?
I've been turned into a vampire, yes? The second question was the one I wanted to ask her the most. Loser and chicken? Well, it was the kind that someone who didn't want to face reality would ask, and as such, fell in the softball category too. I didn't have to ask her to know the answer.
But of course, there's no need for me to spell it out to thee now, is there? Ye have become my thrall and my servant. Consider it an honor.
Your servant? She'd called me that earlier, too. A servant. Strangely enough, the thought didn't bother me. So why do you look like a child now? Last night, 2 nights before yesterday? When I met you, you were more, grown up, and...
Excuse me for being childish.
No, that's not what I mean. More grown up, and with all of her limbs severed. That's what I wanted to say.
I wrung thee dry to the last drop, even.
She bared her fangs at me and laughed. What she was saying was, no laughing matter, but she laughed nonetheless.
Yet that was still not nearly enough, which is why I've taken on an appropriate form. 'Tis better than dying, though I'm only able to sustain the bare minimum of immortality. Most all of my powers as a vampire have been curtailed such an inconvenience.
Still, 'tis better than dying, she repeated. She didn't want to die, she said. The image of her crying and sobbing floated through my mind. There wasn't a single trace of it in the way she spoke now. It was then that I realized long after the fact that I really did save this woman. I'd saved a vampire, tossing away my own life.
As thou can see, I was able to regenerate my limbs, at least in form. There's no meat in them, but they will suffice for the time being. But let me make our relationship clear for thee, servant. Though I may have taken on this guise, I am a vampire who has lived through 500 years. Not to mention our master and servant relationship. In truth, I am not one to be addressed as an equal by a newly born vampire such as thee.
Oh, oh?
What a vague reply! Do ye understand me?
Well, yeah.
Then, as proof of thy submission to me, stroke my head.
I stroked her head. Sheesh, I thought. Her hair's so soft. There was so much of it, but it was like my fingers were gliding across it.
Ha! Good enough.
This is proof of my submission?
Do ye not even know that? How ignorant! But ignorant as thou may be, I am glad to have a pliant servant. A good master attracts good servants. However, servant, ye saved my life. Saved it, even as I appeared in that unsightly manner to thee. Which is why I am of a mind to grant thee special permission to address me in that uncouth tone, and to slur me by calling me Kiss-Shot.
Slur you? Had I basically called her by her first name after all? I felt like I'd really messed up, but I couldn't call her something else now, not after all that. Still, Kiss-Shot had said another thing that bothered me. Dash, as thou can see, I was able to regenerate my limbs, dash at least in form. It was true, while her petite, slender body was a 10-year-old girl's, Kiss-Shot did now have her arms and legs, at least in form. They had no meat in them.
And I suspect that I will have to rely on thee in the days to come.
Huh? What was that supposed to mean? That didn't just bother me, it wholly preoccupied me. And that means?
But don't get carried away, my servant. A servant attends to his mistress, as a matter of course. If I command thee to stroke my head, ye shall faithfully stroke it, no matter the time or place. Understand?
Well, I say that, but she had a 10-year-old's body, which meant she had no chest to speak of. It was more like a child trying to stand her tallest. Though of course the phrase puffing your chest out doesn't include emphasizing your breast size as a nuance. Then again, no, it seemed pointless to tease her about it. I couldn't see her giving me a proper reply, either. I'd rib her about that later. I needed to get around to asking her the one thing I wanted to know the most. Why did you turn me into a vampire? I was ready for you to suck me dry, for you to kill me. I'd even seen my life flashing before my eyes. I'd seen face after face, well, just 4. Or wait, had it been 5? I had a hard time remembering.
It's not as if it was intentional. One whose blood is sucked by a vampire is turned into a vampire, without exception. There was nothing more to it.
Oh, I see. If I had known that, would I have offered her my neck? I'd been ready to be sucked dry. I'd been ready to be killed too. But had I been ready to quit being human?
Well, it's quite convenient for me. Guess why? It is because there is something thou must do for me.
You said something about having to rely on me. Dash to rely on thee in the days to come.
Yes, my body could only recover to this point with thy blood alone. I am far from my full power. Going forward, thou must act for me.
Going forward?
Indeed, I always act looking 2 steps ahead, for that is what makes me the iron-blooded, hot-blooded, yet cold-blooded vampire Kiss-Shot Acerola-Orion, Heart Underblade.
What a long slogan. How many characters long was that when you added in her name? Plus, only the cold-blooded part made sense? What are you going to make me? What are you going to make me do? I almost asked her the question, but that would derail the conversation. If Kiss-Shot was going to try to make me do something, then that was quite worthy of discussion. But first, there was something I needed to ask. I had the answer to my lead-in question. So I asked her the one thing I wanted to know, more than any other. Can I ever become human again? That was all. Kiss-Shot didn't respond in any of the ways I expected her to. I was sure she'd be mad, or bemused, or perplexed, but all she did was nod, almost like she understood.
I thought so!
She even said that. My predictions had been off, but it seemed as though hers had been spot on. Even the fact that I'd ask, it was as if she knew all along.
I understand how ye feel.
You? You do? a greater existence. Those were Hanekawa's words, but judging by Kissshot's tone, I was certain that she ranked humans below vampires such as herself. For her, humans were lesser beings. In that case, why wasn't I happy to have become a vampire? Why would I ever want to go back to being human? I thought she'd reply along those lines, but
Of course I understand. I was once invited to become a god, but I declined.
a god?
'Twas a long time ago. I understand. Not so much wanting to go back to being human, but wishing to remain as one is. I thought thou might ask for that. While I did say, welcome to the world of the night, I did not expect thee to wish to stay.
I see. And so, can I?
Sure ye can. I give thee my assurance, upon my name. But naturally, my servant, to do so thou must do a few things for me. I need not hesitate to issue orders to my servant. Let's not think of them as orders, but as a threat. If it is thy wish to turn back into a human, obey me.
And then naturally, she let out a gruesome laugh. Dramaturgy, episode, guillotine cutter. Those were the names of the trio who robbed Kissshot of her parts, or so she said. While Kissshot told me about each of them and their traits, words didn't seem adequate to the task. It was like she was explaining in a foreign language, so my mental image of all three of them was fuzzy, but the most important point about them was beyond easy to understand. The man named Dramaturgy, her right leg. The man named Episode, her left leg. The man named Guillotine Cutter, both of her arms. They had taken her limbs, which was why she'd been on the verge of death. In fact, Kissshot wasn't just on the verge, she would have surely died if she hadn't sucked my blood. Despite being immortal, she would have died, and she understood that better than anyone else. She'd resigned herself at that moment. Though she narrowly escaped, barely alive from the trio, escaping was all she could do. Why? Why would they steal your arms and legs?
I am a vampire. Yea, humans. Well, not thee, but humans call those like me monsters. It is only right for monsters to be exterminated. Those three specialize in slaying vampires. It is those bastards' profession to kill me. Ye've at least heard of the existence of those who specialize in eliminating those like myself, have ye not?
I guessed so. They were discussed hand in hand with vampires. My memory was fuzzy, and it wasn't like I knew all that much to begin with. But I had at least heard of them. So they slew you.
Don't be a fool, I haven't been slain yet, but having my limbs stolen hurts. I've nearly none of my regenerative power left, and in my current state, I can hardly fight.
I see.
Which is why ye shall contend against the three and simply return to me my limbs.
Huh? Simply?
Well, though I cannot provide thee with details at the moment, in order to turn thee back into a human, I must be at my full power, in full form, so to speak. And for that, I absolutely require those limbs.
But me? Fight? It's totally not my thing, you know? I guess my reflexes aren't terrible, but they're not great. And you can see how I'm built. I've never been in a fight before. Oh, and wouldn't they just try to slay me too? I, too, for the time being, was a vampire. The chances were high. After all, I would be up against a trio whose specialty was slaying vampires. Even if they let me off the hook because I was a former human, why would they simply hand back limbs they'd won in battle?
Fool! That was when ye were human, as my thrall, and now that I am at my weakest, it would be simple for thee even to slay me.
Ha! Are you weak for a vampire or what?
Nonsense!
I got scolded. Basically, she was a scold, this one.
How can thou reach such a conclusion for what I've said? I'll have thee know that I sit among the top rank of vampires. They call me the Aberration Slayer.
The Aberration Slayer. If that was supposed to sound fearsome, I wasn't, feeling it. To begin with, what was an aberration? Was it like a yokai? Whatever. Even if I'm stronger than you in your weakened form, even if I am, those three were able to take your limbs from you when you were at your full strength, right? Your full form? In that case,
I slipped up only because there were three of them. I'd made light of them and was completely unprepared. I'd presumed I could take even three of their ilk together.
huh,
In short, faced one at a time, they pose no problem for thee. To put it plainly, 'tis an easy job, and a cheap price to pay for turning back into a human.
it wasn't as though her vague reassurances had persuaded me, but that was how I ended up walking around town at night. It was a while after the sun had set that I was finally able to leave that abandoned cram school and grasp exactly where I was. The place's coordinates were on the outskirts of my already provincial town. In fact, I'd had no idea that such a building, some bankrupt cram school, even existed out there. I imagined that it was forced out of business when one of those major cram school chains decided to open up in front of the station. While it was perfect as a hiding spot, I was amazed that Kissshot had found it. I'd already called home. Fortunately, it was my little sister, the older one, who picked up. I asked her to tell the others that her big bro was using spring break to go on a journey of self-discovery. She seemed to buy it. But didn't that mean she saw me as the kind of older brother who was at risk of setting out on a journey of self-discovery at any moment? Kinda pathetic. Immediately afterward, I received a text from the younger of my two little sisters. Both of them were still in middle school and weren't allowed cell phones. She'd sent the message from the computer in our living room.
Dear big brother, I know that, at times, we all have to lose our way. But when you have a moment to reflect, try to remember. Where was it that Mytil and Tyltyl found the bluebird of happiness?
Chastised by my little sister, I was honestly upset when I realized that I'd wasted some of my phone's battery on receiving the message. I did have to recharge my phone somewhere. I couldn't just go home and pick up my charger, and maybe I needed to buy a new one at a convenience store. Since there was no way the electricity was turned on in the remains of that cram school, a battery-powered one. Of course it wouldn't have to come to that if I wrapped it up before my battery died. No problem for me? They aren't my problem, okay? I should have told her they're her problem, but maybe it was an easy job after all? While I didn't fully believe her at first, it did seem as though my abilities as a vampire were the real deal, but explaining how I tested them might be incriminating. In light of laws against the destruction of property, permit me to remain silent. Hey, if a building is abandoned, then a little damage here or there, you get the idea. At any rate, I feel like we're overlooking something. Kissshot's words had left me wondering. That, plus the fact that the whole exchange had proceeded at such a clip. So, where are these three?
I haven't a clue.
You haven't a clue.
Thy concerns are unneeded and uncalled for. Walk around at random, and they shall find thee. These are professional vampire hunters. Remember, finding vampires is what they do.
Oh yeah?
Aye, they should pose no problems while we rest easy in here, but if we walk outside at night, when our vampiric powers thrive, they will surely come buzzing like insects to a lamp. They must be roaming this town at this very moment, searching for me. With any luck, it will be settled tonight.
Kaha! Hee-heh! Kissshot had let out a disconcerting laugh. Well, not having to look for them was neat. Because how would I even do that? I had nothing, least of all personal connections. No way. Still, that conversation proceeding at a good clip didn't sit right with me. Shouldn't I be questioning a whole number of things? Even if it was a hard fact that I'd become a vampire. For example, I leapt straight on it when she said it, but would I really be able to turn back into a human again? What proof did I have that Kissshot wasn't lying? She could be using me in order to recover her arms and legs. Feeding on me hadn't been enough, so she was literally using me as her right-hand man. Not to mention her other limbs. No, Kissshot was clear from the beginning. These weren't orders, they were a threat. She would be relying on me. But if I got nothing in return, there was no way I'd agree to help her. And to get me too, she lied and said she could turn me back into a human. Was that it? Luring me. With a lie. I wanted to become human again, and Kissshot had predicted that from the beginning. If I was her servant, she didn't need to do anything so convoluted. She could order me right? No. In her current state, she had lost most of her skills as a vampire, so maybe she had to lie to keep me under her command? That actually made sense. While she did look to be about 10 now with that 10-year-old's body of hers, when I recalled her original visage, she seemed to be quite intelligent. At the very least, if she'd spoken truly, she'd lived for 500 years. She couldn't be dim, and anyway it felt like I hadn't asked the most basic question of all. It was as if I'd been so caught up in becoming human again that I was neglecting a crucial point. I hadn't asked why Kissshot was even here in Japan, and moreover, in such a provincial town, to begin with. Yokai really didn't seem to be the right word. But in any case, vampires were Western monsters, right? As for the three guys, hadn't Kissshot essentially brought them to Japan? Whatever the case, all I had were guesses. Whether or not Kissshot was scheming, I had no choice at the moment but to believe her, to cling to her words. It was she who had grasped the initiative, without question. First, I would get her limbs back. We could talk after that. Her story may have been made up of whole cloth, but she couldn't have been lying about the vampire-slaying specialists too. And it was then, as I was doing as Kishshot had told me to, trudging along a sidewalkless street as bait, that I came across a fork in the road, and it happened. I had to wonder, for someone who had lived for 500 years, could that vampire called Kishshot Acerola-Orion Hardenblade actually be pretty dim? Faced one at a time, they pose no problem for thee, or so she declared, but where did that premise come from? She was the one who lost because there were 3 of them. Her own words, far from proceeding at a good clip, what an idiot I was. But it was too late, or in a way maybe I had realized just in time. I did envision that very situation, a second be someone at the bed which Ged, with any luck, it will be settled tonight. That was what Kishshot had said. But without any, it would also be settled tonight. With me dying for a second time. What am I supposed to do? First, from ahead and to the right, a massive man who looked over 7 feet tall was walking my way. A great sword with a wavy blade in each hand. They talk about a mountain of a man, and I could see his powerful frame all but bursting through his clothes. I could have used each leg of the jeans he wore as a sleeping bag, and you could have made 5 of my shirts from the material it took to make his, as if to hold back his unkempt hair, left to grow for God knows how long. He wore a hairband above his forehead, a grim expression on his face, his mouth shut and perfectly straight. This man, slinging 2 wavy greatswords who seemed to be made of pure muscle, glared at me. He looked exactly as he'd been described to me. That man was Dramaturgy, the man who took Kishshot's right leg from her. And ahead, from the left, a man was closing in on me who seemed to cut a slim figure, and not just in comparison to Dramaturgy. There was still some youth left in his face, but there was nothing innocent about the look he gave me. While it's a common saying, if looks could kill, I'd have died then and there. That was how sharp his Sanpaku eyes were. He wore a white traditional school uniform, which, depending on your perspective, really did make him appear young, but the gigantic cross he balanced on his shoulder with one arm did much to dispel that impression. It looked like someone had taken one of those plain crosses you wore as an accessory and multiplied its size 50-fold. A lump of silver, the cross was comically large, about 3 times the size of the man, and probably his own weight cubed. It wasn't a stretch to imagine that the cross was used not as an instrument of worship but in combat. The man seemed to look straight through me, and even appeared to have a slight grin on his face. And together with that gigantic cross on his shoulder, he approached me. He looked exactly as he'd been described to me. That man was Episode, the man who took Kishshot's left leg from her. What should I? Then, from behind, I didn't know since when, but a man wearing priestly robes who looked almost docile, at least compared to the 2 to my front, was following me. His hair brought to mind a hedgehog, but that was the only part of him that signaled danger, and his demeanor seemed downright peaceful. I couldn't tell what lay hidden in his eyes, so narrow that I could barely tell whether they were open or shut, and at the very least, unlike the other 2, he had nothing, be it greatsword or cross, that smacked of a weapon, but that seemed to be the most notable aspect of this priestly man of all. For despite his appearance, he'd taken twice as many parts from Kishshot as the other 2. The priestly man, with his unassuming face and empty hands, closed in on me at a natural pace. He looked exactly as he'd been described to me. That man was Guillotine Cutter, the man who took Kishshot's right and left arms, both of them, from her. Heck, there isn't anything I could do. Experts at slaying vampires, Dramaturgy, Episode, Guillotine Cutter. The 3 men were converging on me. It was as if the forked road had been placed there for this exact moment. There was nowhere to run. I was a trapped rat.
For real? Gotta love it. It isn't Heart Underblade. Who is this guy?
Yes? Sorry.
So, replied the hulking man Dramaturgy to Episode, ignoring me though I was caught between the 2. His tone seemed stern and wholly solemn, but I wasn't able to make out his words.
Now, Mr. Dramaturgy, speak the language of the land you are in. That should go without saying.
As they are.
I made to look behind me, then realized that would mean turning my back on Dramaturgy and Episode. I was unable to move.
But it does seem to be the case, Mr. Dramaturgy. I dare say no. I'm certain that this young man must be Miss Heart Underblade's thrall.
Seriously? I thought that vampire had a notion about not creating thralls?
She did create just one in the past, I've been told.
Perhaps we drove her to have no other choice but to create an underling to act as her arms and legs.
With his body that looked like a mound of muscle, I'd assumed he was a meathead. But he hit the mark when it came to what I was.
Are you telling me the whereabouts of Heart Underblade, which we've had so much trouble ferreting out, what with her fated presence, is something we can just beat out of this kid's body?
That would seem to be the case.
We'd better receive a separate bounty for slaying this boy in addition to Heart Underblade.
What had I been expecting? Overlook me because I was a former human, after all? How could I ever think that? It went beyond wishful thinking. From the outset, they were treating me like I was nothing, ignoring me the whole while. They didn't recognize me as a living thing. My very existence seemed to count for nothing.
What to do? It will take a bit of work if we're to take episode's suggestion and learn Miss Heart Underblade's whereabouts from this boy.
I got this. Whoever smelt it, dealt it. I'll kill him without doing any permanent damage.
No, let me. I am the most suitable one for tasks like these. I get along best with vampires.
I don't particularly mind doing it either. The two of you must be tired.
Don't be talking crap. You guys, try to talk things out with me or something. Don't be going straight into how you'll put me down. I'm a human, okay? Are you gonna murder a human? While it was only for a moment, they went silent. It made me think my words must have gotten across to them. But that was all. While my words may have gotten across, their meaning didn't. Not one of them attempted to respond to me.
Why don't we do this the usual way?
Okay. So first takes it?
Very well. Fair competition provides a chance for all of us to hone our skills.
And then nearly simultaneously, the three vampire hunters leapt toward me where I stood in the center of the forked road. It was probably only thanks to my vampire eyesight that I saw their movements. Not only could I see through darkness, my eyes had incredible dynamic vision. What good was being able to see them? What could I possibly do? Ah. The course of action I took was, in most likelihood, the most idiotic one conceivable. That's to say, holding my head in my hands, I curled my back and crouched down to the ground. I ditched defense, but nor was this defense my stance was an attempt to escape reality. It was impossible. Of course it was. What was I even thinking? I wasn't the protagonist of some manga or movie or game. I was a mere high school student. So why was I out trying to fight vampire hunters? What was this? Some superpowered school action series? Of course I couldn't win. So what if I'd been able to punch through a concrete wall? So what if I was able to jump high and move fast? What good would those powers do me? Like I said, I'd never even been in a fight before. I had no one to fight with. I didn't know any martial arts or anything. God damn it, I'd already thrown my life away, given it to Kishot. So then, why was I clinging to it so dearly now? No matter how much time went by, no matter how long I waited, none of the three began to rain down attacks on me. What now, are they going to toy with me? Or was I so pathetic that they were stunned? Did I kill the mood by no? Of course not. They weren't going to toy with me. I barely registered as they're in their eyes, which is why I lifted my face, buried in my knees, and peeked up. And then...
You're in the dead center of a residential area, and yet you'd swing swords and hammer down with a cross and say menacing things? You three sure are spirited.
Catching both of Dramaturgy's wavy greatswords, one between the index and middle fingers, the other between the ring finger and pinky of his right hand, receiving episode's gigantic cross with the sole of his right foot, like it was all in a day's work, suppressing Guillotine Cutter's nimble move with an outstretched left hand, without even touching. Who was he? Some older guy just passing by.
Something good happened to you three?
Me Moschino. That was the name given by the dude passing by. I thought it was a ridiculous name, but there was no way I could tell him that, what with him saving my life. Even if he did seem sketchy. Even if he was wearing a psychedelic Hawaiian shirt, he had saved my life, so I shouldn't say such things. But what a sleazy-looking dude. Oshino? I didn't know whether to call him Mr. Oshino, and if I should be more polite in general, I may have owed him my life, but I had no idea who or what he was, so I wasn't stooping to stooping. Friend or foe, even if he'd saved me, I wasn't sure yet, though I'm sure stooping to stooping is an odd turn of phrase. Nonetheless, I did express my gratitude. Thanks, you saved me.
No need for thanks. You saved yourself, Araragi.
He didn't seem to be taking this very seriously. In fact, neither did those three. As soon as Oshino got in the way of their initial attacks, all three quickly turned back the way they came, as though they'd decided to beforehand. They had disappeared before I knew it, without so much as a parting threat. While I wasn't able to fulfill my goal of recovering Kishot's limbs, my life did seem to be intact. Just as long as this Hawaiian-shirted man, Meme Oshino, wasn't my enemy, or Kishshot Acerola-Orion heart underblades.
Still, Koyomi Araragi, the name fits you. Nice and dramatic. Ha! But those three really don't pause to think, do they? No one with ordinary nerves would get down to it right here without putting up a barrier first. They must really be going places. Oh, don't be so guarded, Araragi. Your eyes are glaring, so spirited. Something good happened to you today.
As Ashino said this, he pulled a cigarette out from the chest pocket of his Hawaiian shirt and stuck it in his mouth. I was convinced that he'd come up with a lighter next, but he didn't, simply leaving the cigarette there, unlit.
Anyway, Araragi, let's go home for now.
Home?
That abandoned cram school.
He said it like it was nothing, then began to walk. I reflexively called out to his back. Hold on a minute. How do you know?
Huh? Why wouldn't I? I was the one who told that girl about the place.
The guy let drop incredible stuff like it was normal. What? True, I'd wondered how Kishshot had been able to find such a place, but he was the one who told her?
Well, I was merely doing the right thing. That girl Heart Underblade seemed to be in quite a bit of trouble dragging your body around, so I told her about a good spot.
Do you and Kishshot know each other? Rather than respond to my question, Oshino squinted at me as if my very choice of words was dubious. What is it?
Nothing, so you call her Kishshot.
Huh? Yeah.
As you heard with those three, most call her Heart Underblade, but I guess you don't, Araragi.
Yeah, it's too long, isn't it? It's not like there's a correct way to refer to her, is there?
Well, you're right. And if she made you her thrall, then I guess it's not too strange. Regardless of what regular vampires may do, she, Heart Underblade, is a legendary vampire, the Aberration Slayer, the iron-blooded, hot-blooded yet cold-blooded vampire.
Vampire, so you know. On further thought, it was awfully late of me to be saying this. It was clear from how he'd appeared out of nowhere and easily blocked the trio's attacks. Who are you?
Me. At times a mysterious vagabond, at times a mysterious traveler, at times a mysterious wanderer, at times a mysterious troubadour, and at times a mysterious nomad of the high sort.
Mysterious all the way through.
A lot of times, the chorus of a woman's lowest vocal range.
A lot? Altogether? Altogether alto?
All too...
You didn't think this out, did you?
I'm just a dude passing by.
Yep, he was sleazy.
That's how it was today and the other day too. I was just passing by when I saw Heart Underblade in trouble. Don't worry, I'm not an expert at slaying vampires or anything.
Could I believe him? No, that wasn't it. I could only believe him. I had no choice.
Though I'm no amateur, my specialty is broader. People have me do a wide variety of things, but introductions can wait until later. Let's go back for now, Araragi.
In the end, I did as Ashino said. I went back to the abandoned cram school with him. There was still technically a possibility that he'd turn out to be a vampire-slaying expert who was after Kishshot. To say the least, however, he knew about the cram school Kishshot was hiding out in and could have gone straight there instead of wandering the streets. That is, if he were an expert vampire slayer working separately from the three. Slaying her couldn't be hard then, given Kishshot Acerola-Orion Heart Underblade's weakened state. When I looked at it that way, Ashino was no simple enemy, though he didn't seem like a simple ally either.
Ah, you're back!
Ashino and I wasted time on pointless chat, truly pointless, like about old anime. The conversation made me certain that friend or foe, I didn't need to use honorifics with him. And after about an hour's walk, we arrived at the abandoned school. Once we reached its second floor, Kishshot was there to greet me with a big smile on her face, as if she had been eagerly awaiting my return. Ack. The woman hadn't realized her strategic blunder yet. Awkward.
Who is that behind thee? I do seem to recall his face.
I can't believe you. Is that all I am to you? I'm the one who told you about this secret base in the first place. Heart Underblade, my little aberration slayer.
Ah, right. From then.
It didn't seem to be a lie after all. Ashino really had met her that night. So it could be true as well that she learned about this abandoned building from him.
And?
She asked, cutting off the conversation with Oshino as if she was completely uninterested in him and addressing me. Again, all that hope in her eyes. It made her harder to blame. I want you to calm down and listen, okay? Subtlety has never been one of my strong points, nor am I any good at euphemisms. As someone who's avoided relationships with others since entering high school, my ability to carry a conversation is unusually poor. Anyway, how Dramaturgy episode and Guillotine Cutter all three ended up attacking me at the same time, how I wasn't able to recover her limbs as a result, and how Ashino got me out of the tight spot. I frankly explained it all to her. By the by, Ashino took that time to gather all the school desks in order to make what appeared to be a bed. Was he planning to sleep there or what? How carefree could you get? Kishshot listened to the end but didn't seem particularly let down. I'd almost forgotten. It was easy to get confused by her 10-year-old appearance, but in fact she was far more grown up than me. She wouldn't just throw a tantrum, even if she was, maybe, dim.
What a predicament! So those three still act as a unit, do they? Now that they have me cornered, I was sure they would separate and engage in some free competition.
So you did have a plan.
They seem utterly determined to destroy me. What ridiculous obstinacy! Haven't they damaged me enough already?
They were talking about a bounty or something.
Ah, I see. That was how this age operates. Of course. How heartless. I can't allow myself to be this addled. Perhaps it's due to the time difference.
You sound like a frequent flyer or something. Oh, right. I could use the opportunity to ask her. I had been so busy caring about myself that I'd forgotten. Kishshot, why are you in Japan in the first place? And in this town in the middle of nowhere, too?
For a spot of tourism. I want to see Mount Fuji, the Golden Pavilion, and whatnot.
She said it awfully casually. I thought there was no way she could be telling the truth. How was our town going to greet weirdos who brandish deadly weapons in public that she might end up bringing with her on such a visit? Not to mention that neither Mount Fuji nor the Golden Pavilion was anywhere near our town, but on the flip side, it was hard to follow up on a lie that blatant. You're not plotting to take over Japan or something, are you? Whatever. In any case, those three working together took you down even when you were in full power mode, right? Then how am I, your thrall, supposed to be able to beat them?
As I said, face them one at a time.
I can't do that if they're working together. You said we'd be fine as long as we laid low. But there's no telling when they'll find this happen.
That's not a problem. I quietly went ahead and placed a barrier here while you two were asleep.
A barrier? Like a force field or something?
Well, something like that. It'd be a different story if they had an amazing sense of the territory that those three foreigners won't be finding us here.
Listen, what are you planning?
What am I planning? Why are you helping Kishshot and me? I'm starting to understand that you're not an enemy, even though I can't see you as an ally. What a terrible thing to say. But like I was trying to tell you, I'm not out to help you too. There's no reason or need for me to help you. It's not even a matter of friend or foe. If it's a help, then you went and helped yourself.
I have no idea what you're saying.
What I'm trying to do is balance things out. You could call that my job, an intermediary between here and there. Vampires may be a bit of a nuisance. They're too powerful, even for that side. Not only that, I have the Aberration Slayer on my hands. Hearing you talk about this, Araragi, you seem to be implying that those three attacking her all at once was a cowardly act, but that's not the case at all. That's what the girl Heart Underblade there is worthy of.
Such praising words. You'll make me blush.
It didn't quite seem like praise to me, but I decided I'd ignore that. The question now was finding out who Ashino truly was. Now introduce yourself. You said you would.
Me Moshino, a free spirit with no permanent address. Well, you can just think of me as an authority on yokai and the like ha. Though unlike those three, I'm not particularly good at slaying yokai.
Not particularly good?
To be a little more honest, I don't like it.
But it's your specialty?
Balancing things is my specialty, like I said. Standing in between and finding a happy middle ground. If you had to, you could call me a negotiator.
A negotiator? An intermediary between here and there? Where was here and where was there? Here being humans and there being monsters. But in that case, which side was I on now?
Monsters. I like it, though I call them aberrations. And that girl there is known as the Aberration Slayer. You get what that means. She's the rare kind of vampire able to drain the energy from aberrations. And that's why the kid's famous.
I'll have thee know that I did not choose to be famous.
10 is a pretty difficult age. I began to think, but remembered that she wasn't as young as she looked. They say not to judge people by their appearances, but getting used to this would take time. Another reason I hope she'd return to full power mode soon.
Do not presume to know me, boy.
Calling that dude boy, though if she really was 500 years old, it wasn't exactly wrong. In fact, it was Oshino calling her kid and girl that was endlessly disrespectful.
You're right, Heart Underblade. I shouldn't judge others based on rumors whether they're human or not. But listening to a bit of your exchange just now, the two of you seem to be in a pretty tight spot. I never would have expected complications.
There isn't a thing complicated about it. In fact, 'tis quite simple.
Maybe if you looked at it from a vampire's lifespan, but it spells trouble for humans like us. Right, Araragi?
Wait. Wow. This guy understood the situation, yet spoke like I was human, like I belonged to this side.
What's the matter? Why that reaction? You want to return to being human, don't you, Araragi? Am I wrong?
Well, I do, but
If you want to stay human, then you're human, basically speaking. And, Heart Underblade, I'm pleased. You made Araragi your thrall, but you do intend to turn him back into a human.
while Ashino seemed to be offering Kishot unqualified praise this time, she responded with a pout.
Negotiator or whatever thou may be, do not speak when it is not thy place to do so, boy. I have never liked busybodies.
Busybody? Oh, I'm anything but. Honestly, I'm the introverted type. But that doesn't matter. I don't mean to be a busybody, but if you'd like, I don't mind interceding.
I interceding? Between us and those three?
Who else? Honestly, I think that showing you this ruined cram school plus constructing the barrier was more than enough, but maybe we're tied by some kind of fate.
So, you'll save us?
I'm not going to save you. Just lending you a helping hand. The balance still seems a little off as things are like you're being bullied. As I said earlier, I don't really like the kind of slaying that they do. Again, no. I'm not a friend, and I'm not an enemy. I said I'd intercede, right? In other words, I'll stand in between. What happens after that is up to you. I'm not the one who's going to act. When life gives you the boot, you're the one who has to pull yourself up by its straps. I don't get involved in causes or results. All I do is tinker with the process in between.
I looked at Kishot, but she seemed just as dumbfounded by Oshino. What was with this guy? Aloofly and airily he'd managed this situation?
Oh, but of course, this is my job, so I wouldn't do it for free. After all, I'm a wanderer, going from journey to journey. You don't want to run out of change on the road. Say, how does 2 million yen or so sound?
T2 million?
You can pay me when you have it. I won't ever bother you for the money. But I need to at least charge that much, or else it won't all balance out.
But I had no choice but to believe him. Even so, could I really believe him? This passerby dude? Between telling Kishot about this abandoned cram school and saving me from those three putting the stuff about the barrier aside, he did seem to have done enough to earn our trust. Still, something about him just seemed shady.
Tell us your exact plan. Ye speak of negotiation, but it could not be easy. There is no way to persuade those three. Given thy position as a neutral party, I cannot expect thee to return to me my limbs, can I?
Well, I couldn't do that much. I'd be a busybody. I haven't thought much about a plan either. All I can do is bow my head and ask them nicely. In good faith, too, if they don't listen, I'll have to fall back on dangerous ideas. But if we're lucky and they do, the game will be on.
The game, yeah, I say.
But the first order of business would be to split up those three. They pose no problem faced one at a time. Isn't that your take on it, Heart Underblade? Then we just need to make that happen. It will require taking on a little bit, well, quite a lot of risk on your parts, but go along with that for me.
I've been prepared to do such from the start. Ye can count on our resolve mine, of course, as well as my servants.
She'd gone and resolved for me too. Hey, that's my resolve.
Still, boy, how do ye plan on negotiating with those three?
Like I said, I'll bow my head and ask nicely. Those three seemed like the type you can talk to.
Those three who didn't listen to a word I said were, of all things, the type you can talk to? Just how much of a pacifist was this guy?
The details are a trade secret, but I'll ready the battleground. Then Araragi, you will get Heart Underblade's limbs back from them. If you recover all 4, Heart Underblade regains her power, and you go right back to being human.
Recover, huh? In the end, I had to handle the hard part. They posed no problem faced one at a time, but we were talking about those 3. Dramaturgy episode, guillotine cutter. Wavy dual-wielded greatswords, a giant cross, an unfathomable man. Honestly, I didn't feel like I could win. It was something I had to do, since it was for my own sake. But I wouldn't be able to challenge them completely unprepared like I had that evening. Then again, for the entire day, I'd done way too little thinking. I'd pretended to be calm when I was actually flustered, not just me, Kishot too. So if I was going to go fight them again, we needed some sort of measure.
My servant. I can't provide human currency. I'm unsure how much of a debt 2 million yen is, but is it a sum you could take on? Worry not. The boy's skills are real, even if we ignore the fact that he taught us of this place and that he rescued thee. I can tell that much, even in my weakened state. But he's neither an enemy nor a friend. He's neutral.
What, Kishot?
I'd never any expectations for an ally, and if he, privy as he is to my current location, were foe, then we are done for. There's no use worrying over it. If he says that he is a neutral party, then we shall not wish for more.
Oh, that was one way to look at it. A reasoned, or rather, a harsh view. And furthermore, while there was no point in my saying so outright, it wasn't as if we'd be in any worse of a position if Oshino's negotiations failed. It wasn't just her eyes that were cold then. In that case, there was only one question left unanswered. The passerby dude. Just passing by. But the question was, did Oshino really happen to pass by? He was there when Kishot was at a loss as to where to go. And he was there when I was being attacked. Wasn't that a little too much to call a coincidence? Even if it was intentional, it didn't change a thing. And I didn't think Oshino had anything to gain by it, but passing by that often, yet maybe that was it. Observing a coincidence that had come to be, I was perhaps ascribing motive after the fact. Going down the same line of thought, even my encounter with Hanakawa, who left the school gates the afternoon after closing ceremonies while I was wandering around near school, seemed not to be a mere coincidence. Come to think of it, if I hadn't run into her, I wouldn't have snuck out of the house that night to go to the bookstore, which is to say I wouldn't have run into Kishot, or was I beginning to overthink it? Maybe I needed to call it all a lucky coincidence and be done with it, for the time being. Then again, lucky definitely wasn't a word I wanted to apply to encountering such a sleazy dude. I absolutely don't like saying this about my savior, but to be frank, he's the sort that I'm least comfortable around. Even so, I made up my mind and said, I don't have that kind of money saved up, but if I can pay you when I have it, and you won't bother me for it, and if you also don't need any guarantor or collateral, I'll take it on. There was nothing else I could do. It was heartbreaking to have to take on a debt at my young age, but desperate times called for desperate measures.
All right, deal. Ha ha ha. Thanks for your business, as they say. Oh, and I'll be staying overnight here starting today. Hope I'm not too much of a nuisance. Well, actually, I'd had my eye on this place ever since coming to this town. I had to do the right thing and let Heart Underblade have it. But there really is no better abandoned building in town. So what now? Wanna form a huddle to psych us up for tomorrow and what it'll bring?
Oshino said this in a most unpsyched posture, still lying down, and of course neither Kishot nor I took him up. Once again, midnight had come and gone without my noticing. It was now March 29th. Speaking of tomorrow, today was already tomorrow. Dramaturgy. A massive man over 7 feet tall, a dual wielder of wavy greatswords apparently known as flamberges. A mountain of a man, a ball of pure muscle. The hairband he wore to hold back his hair stood out too. And he was a vampire hunter who had taken Kishot's right leg from her. After this and that, though, to be honest, only Oshino knew what this and that were. And I had no idea why things turned out as they did. I was facing him first. I sighed, slumping my shoulders a little hunched over as I walked around the town at night once again. The date was March 31st, the last day of the month. If I took too long, midnight would come and it would be April Fool's Day. I needed to be careful. Don't get me wrong, I was already about to be in my last year of high school, so it's not as if I had any particular feelings about April Fool's Day. It was simply a matter of my mood. While I have no feelings about April Fool's Day in particular, I don't like days that are like special events.
Dramaturgy is a vampire!
I'd just been told that. Moments before I was going to leave, in that second-floor classroom, Kishot gave me another lecture about dramaturgy. This bit was new to me, though. The vampire? He's a vampire? He's a vampire?
Could ye not tell by the sight of him, or are there humans who boast his frame? I've never heard tell of any in my 500 years.
Well, she was right. He was more than just tall or muscled, he was on a different level. Still, did she have to look at me like I was an idiot? But why would a vampire be a vampire hunter? That doesn't make sense.
Vampires who slay their own kind are not particularly uncommon. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a vampire for a vampire, eh?
Wouldn't that make him a traitor, though?
We've no such concept. Or do ye mean to say that humans do not kill one another? Listen, as far as I know, no species of animal exists that does not kill its own kind. No, even among plants, trees rob one another of nutrients. Though strictly speaking, vampires are not living beings.
What a fine detail to point out. Even among plants, huh? Anyway, I get it. But you do need to tell me those kinds of things.
I suppose so. In my weakened state, and in this form, both my thought and memory must be slightly impaired.
So, what should I do?
Oh, nothing special. Merely have a firm grasp of the characteristics of a vampire. And I've already taught thee, have I not?
Advice. Though her offhand remark hardly merited that name.
I doubt dramaturgy would use the tactic, given his position, but do be careful not to let him suck thy blood. Vampires who have their blood sucked by another vampire will see their very existence wrung dry.
That was all she said. For some reason, Kisat's attitude ever since I woke up made it almost seem like she thought highly of me. Like I would win anyway. Like I just needed to hurry off and fetch her limbs. Like I oughta, you imbecile, get off my butt already. Maybe it was this high estimation of me that kept her from scolding me to any great degree even when I failed. But while I was glad of her high estimation, I couldn't help but feel that she was overestimating me. Well, the fact was that she saw me as her thrall and servant. She sang her own praises as a legend, and the strongest, so she must have conferred that valuation on me as well. Still, you know? I walked forward slowly, stopping and starting intermittently reading a book. Its title, Aikido from Step 1. It was a martial arts training manual. The first place I'd headed after leaving the abandoned cram school was the one major bookstore in town. The very same bookstore I went to before meeting Kiss Shop below that street lamp. I was on my second attempt, and possibly what you could call my first serious one, so I'd been expecting more constructive advice from Kiss Shop. Since I didn't have that to rely on, I needed to see to the matter myself, and that is why I had the book. By the way, buying a martial arts training manual on its own was embarrassing, so along with it I purchased a guide on how to play baseball and a book of lists of suggested classical music. Though, what did it mean that I was able to buy dirty magazines on their own while I couldn't overcome my shyness about buying such a manual on its own? Thinking about that, I read as I walked, and soon I had scanned through all of its pages. At nighttime, it was convenient having eyes that could see in the dark, but what I was doing seemed far too much like a stopgap solution. It wasn't clicking at all. But then, I was reminded that the older of my two little sisters practiced a martial art. Was it karate? Right. While I may have had zero experience in real fights, if I counted scuffles with my sister, then I was quite seasoned. She didn't really know how to hold back, but then, I realized what I was thinking and chuckled bitterly. I was about to fight a vampire, of all things. And not only that, it was a duel with a vampire-slaying vampire, and I was trying to learn from some last-minute cramming and fights with my little sister. I was being absolutely ridiculous. Sheesh. I really couldn't act serious, could I? I was just a devil-may-care kind of guy when it came down to it. When exactly had I given up on living an honest life? And just then,
Is that you, Araragi?
I heard a voice from behind me. I turned around and saw Tsubasa Hanekawa there. She was wearing her school uniform. Even though it was spring break, she looked the exact same as she did when school was in session, down to her glasses and braided hair. Oh, Hanekawa. Why was she here? There wasn't anything special about the location. It was just a point along the shortest route between the bookstore and the duel site. Ashino had decided on a regular residential area, like the crossroads where I'd been attacked by the three humble. Did Hanekawa live around here? Don't tell me she picked up on the traitor word honest, running through my head and was here to follow up? Was she that aggressive? Well, that couldn't be it, could it? Naturally, I had begun staring at Hanekawa live around here.
giving you a look today?
This woman. She delivers a line like that with a straight face? So adorable, damn it? Whoa. What do you mean by fi? That os is done fe desta x to done xoa done da roar you are say falling a butt. My voice was cracking, the reaction of someone who knew damn well.
So you forgot what happened?
Forgot? Me? Forget? If anything, I'd expected Hanakawa to forget about our encounter that day soon afterwards.
Even after you saw my panties, after staring right at them.
She remembered. Remembered it devastatingly well. Panties? Oh, you mean those items of clothing used in this country for protection against the cold worn below the torso?
Don't act like you're from a different culture.
No. This is a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. I only saw the lining of your skirt. That was the only thing I was paying attention to, the lining of your skirt.
That's pretty perverted in its own way.
She laughed at me. No, that wasn't the issue here. What are you doing here, Hanakawa?
Going for a walk, I guess.
What, at this hour? The time was 9 at night. Right on the borderline of when it was and wasn't normal for putting aside people like me, a serious student like Hanakawa, to be out. No?
I should ask you the same thing. Araragi, why are you out here at this hour alone, trekking like the Magnificent Seven?
How do I even trek like the Magnificent Seven all alone?
What are you reading, Araragi? Is that a book about baseball?
I started by putting my manual away. I doubted she'd be able to figure out that I'd become a vampire just from my behavior. But since vampires don't show in mirrors, so they say, I honestly couldn't tell how I was coming across at that moment. Still, I had to hide what needed to be hidden. First, my canines. I would be fine as long as I didn't open my mouth too wide as I spoke. I bet. Apart from that, the wound on my neck. The wound from when Kiss Shot bit me, but even if Hanakawa spotted it, I would be able to explain it away. As far as changes outside of my body, being a vampire I didn't have a shadow, but as long as I didn't walk too close to a street lamp she probably wouldn't notice. What concerned me more than anything was how my clothes smelled. Being a vampire, I didn't worry about my body odor in the least, but nor did I have a change of clothes or access to a bath in that abandoned cram school. I really needed to just go and buy a change of clothes. I wanted to take a bath too, just because, but I basically wanted to allot whatever precious money I had in my wallet to the war effort. The phone charger cost more than I expected, and after buying the books, I was essentially out of spending money. Maybe I really needed to go buy home at some point?
What? Is that book something you don't want me seeing? Hey, could it be...
Don't be stupid. I've never even touched printed matter as crass as that. I wouldn't want to sully my soul. It was a blatant lie, but Hanakawa let me off the hook at that cool person that she was. Well, yep, that's about it. I didn't know myself what I was yepping or what was about it, but I was focused on cutting the conversation short and splitting partly because I had to hurry ahead after taking longer than I'd hoped to read my book. But there was also a more concrete fear I had. Wasn't there a chance that I'd get her caught up in this? I was a vampire after all, and so was the man I was about to meet. There was no room for a regular person Hanakawa in that. No matter how much of a model student or a class president, Hanakawa was a regular person.
You're such a fast walker, Araragi. It's not every day we run into each other. We should take the chance to talk some more.
While I thought I had managed to briskly turn my back to her and walk off, Hanakawa caught up to me, just like she'd done that day. Talk. About what?
Right, okay. Here goes. Araragi, what did you study today?
What kind of small talk was that? I hadn't studied anything, duh. Hadn't I told her? I wasn't the kind to study on my own during spring break. Besides, since becoming a vampire, my days and nights had completely reversed themselves, and in my mind, today had just started.
I focused mostly on math.
Math, huh? Ever since I started high school and stopped caring, I'd failed a test in nearly every subject at least once. But math was an exception. It was thanks to my ability to score well on math tests that I was able to cling on to my life as a student at a selective private school. Even in the teacher's lounge you could find people who, fortunately, equated being good at math with being smart. That said, did I have the confidence to take Hanakawa on about math right then? The answer was an emphatic no. I wouldn't stand a chance. After all, if the rumors were true, Hanekawa knew her times tables up to 500. 500. In other words, even a dizzying product like 456 times 321 was something she could supply without thinking. Well, people who use abacuses can apparently do even more impressive things, but ultimately, no matter how difficult, math came down to multiplication and division. If you bypass the hassle of multiplying and dividing, you spend significantly less time per question. I was good at math precisely because it wasn't a subject that benefited from a lot of memorization, but even math fell under that category for Hanekawa. Maybe she was far more of a monster than any vampire. Unfortunately, all I studied today was Spanish.
Spanish? Hun.
Did that mean she believed me? I hadn't actually expected her to.
Too bad I don't know much Spanish.
That really is too bad.
Yeah, just enough for basic conversations.
So she could handle basic conversations. Spasibo!
Spasibo is Russian. Also, it doesn't have any connotation of wonderful, if you want to know.
I wasn't expecting to be hit with that kind of a correction. Or rather, way to go. Hanekawa, you even guessed I'd use the Russian word thinking it meant wonderful.
You need to remember what words mean, Araragi.
Yeah, you really do know everything, don't you?
Not everything. I just know what I know.
Ah. Letting slip words pregnant with meaning as if it were the most natural thing, eh? She wasn't a class president among class presidents for nothing. When I stopped to think about it, we were neither second years nor third years during spring break, so Hanekawa wasn't really a class president. But why split hairs? She felt like a class president. Anyway, who cares what I studied? Every day is a new lesson for all of us. So let's think about something more constructive. Like how to make society a better place.
You're right. Okay, what might we do to get rid of bullying?
Like I'd know. This was supposed to be small talk, spare me the heavy stuff. She'd toss that at me without any sort of advanced prep?
I know it's heavy stuff, but Araragi, we've got to start somewhere. Like they say, Lourdes wasn't built in a day.
You mean Rome wasn't? Wait, didn't Lourdes also mean heavy in French? A clever one, wasn't she? She ad-libbed that? For starters, placing security cameras throughout a school should get rid of outright bullying at least? It wouldn't address the cause, but it'd surely wipe out the effect.
It's not bad as an idea, but there's still the issue of privacy. What about the locker rooms?
Gah. She'd pointed out a major flaw in my plan. People do get bullied in locker rooms. In fact, private spaces pose the highest risk. Okay, I got it. As the person who came up with the idea, I'll take responsibility for checking the videos of the girls' locker room.
What's okay about that?
Miss Hanekawa shook her head in earnest with a teacherly expression. I'd misspoken big time.
And anyway, I wasn't really talking about the girls' locker room, was I?
Yikes! I panicked. Hanekawa continued to look at me, decidedly unimpressed.
You'd peep, Araragi?
No, wait, I got it. I'll let you check the videos of the boys' locker room, so just pretend that I never said that.
No, thank you.
Wait, that wasn't what was important here. I had to hurry up and get away from Hanekawa. I couldn't stand dramaturgy up, and I couldn't get her involved. Hey, Hanekawa, why don't you head home already? I was about to do the same anyway.
Well, you don't have to tell me. That was my plan to begin with.
Do you live around here?
Nope, I was on a walk and ended up here.
You shouldn't wander around at night. You might run into a vampire, you know? It was meant as a self-deprecating, ironic remark, but it wounded me far more than I was ready for. I didn't expect my own words to be so cutting, but on top of that...
Actually, I was kind of hoping I would. I guess it's only a rumor, but I was thinking I just might get to meet a vampire.
Why? Why would you want to meet a damn vampire?
Oh, I don't have anything particular in mind. I'm at that age where you hanker after something out of the ordinary, that's all. I thought I'd meet a vampire, then have a little chat.
Bullshit! And like that, without even meaning to, I yelled at her. Oops, I thought. I messed up.
Sorry. I It seems like I touched a nerve there.
It would have been easy to say not at all. It probably would have been easy. But I didn't. Honestly, I was surprised. It wasn't Hanekawa who was confused, but me. I'd thought I'd come to accept my situation and was keeping my cool as I dealt with it. It being the fact that I'd become a vampire. The fact that I was out to collect Kishot's limbs. I could become human again if I did that. It was simple to understand and simple to accept. No part of me regretted saving Kishot from the verge of death. Even in spite of my predicament, I could confidently say so. Yet, a few little words from Hanekawa had rattled me. When was the last time I'd yelled at someone outside of my family? Oh boy. So my intensity as a human was still at an all-time low. Well, I wasn't even human anymore. And yet. Or rather, that was why, precisely why. No, you're the one who gets on my nerve. What? You piss me off. I'm sick and tired of you. As Hanekawa stood there, still with her vague smile, as if she hadn't taken my meaning, I started hurling at her the most lacerating words I could think of. It felt like abusing a kitten. In other words, it couldn't have felt worse, but I had to say them. I'm alone because I want to be alone. Stop following me.
Wait, Araragi? Why are you saying these things all of a sudden? Weren't we having fun talking until just a second ago?
It wasn't fun for me at all. I was pretending. I was only after your fortune.
My family isn't that rich, you know.
Ack. I hadn't meant to crack a joke. I regrouped. I don't know if this is some way for you to get good letters of recommendation, but what's a model student like you doing talking to a washout like me? You might enjoy whatever feelings of superiority you get from this, but I can't bear you standing there and feeling sorry for me. Hanekawa's face went blank, but I couldn't falter. I had to keep going. I took my phone out of my pocket and pointed it at Hanekawa. And don't mess with people's phones without their permission. I made sure she could see my phone as I deleted Tsubasa Hanekawa's name, number, and email address. So get out of my face. Sanekawa closed her eyes after I said that to her. I wondered if she was going to cry. I hadn't made a girl cry since elementary school, that's what I thought. But rather than cry, she opened her eyes and smiled, though it was a weak smile. Even at this stage?
All right. Sorry you had to say all of that to make me go away.
Then, Hanekawa turned her back to me and ran off, leaving me behind. Sorry? Did she just apologize there at the end? After everything I'd said to her? Honestly, I had managed to blacken my own mood saying all those things. How was she able to smile at me like that? It was obvious why. She wasn't like me. She was a really cool person. I had to quickly part ways with Hanekawa before going to the agreed-upon location. I couldn't allow a regular person like her to get involved. That, of course, had been going through my head. But far more than that, it seemed like I had vented my anger on her. Armed with a host of justifications, I'd taken things out on her. She wanted to meet a vampire. I had vented my anger on her for innocently saying so, when it was clear she didn't mean ill. Maybe I was actually regretting it? Helping Kishot? Maybe I actually hated it? Having to get back Kishot's limbs? Having to endanger my own person to do it? And there was one more thing, which truly scared me. Did I really want to return to being human? I found myself in a living hell if I went out in the sun. There were lots of other restrictions too, but was I sure that I didn't long to be a vampire, an existence greater than any human, closing my eyes to those details? In the end, I had to be feeling nervous. In that case, it was good that I'd cut ties with her. No, the two of us had probably yet to meet. We simply happened to pass by this time too, and that's why. That's why it was probably fortunate that we'd parted ways before any ties could form between us. Was I lucky or what? Fine. That must have done something to up my intensity as a human. I was stronger, which meant that my battle with dramaturgy, my mission to return Kishot's right leg to her, would surely go off without a hitch. Right now, that was what I needed to do most. My heart aching was not a problem. My heart aching was not the issue. I stepped forward. It'd taken me more time than I'd expected, but there still seemed to be no risk of being late to begin with. My destination wasn't far from the bookstore. The location of my battle with dramaturgy, as specified by Yoshino, was a spot I knew well. The athletic field of now a dramaturgs in private high school. You can't schedule a time or a place for vampire hunting. The need can pop up whenever and wherever, and searching for the vampire to then slay is the vampire hunter's way, but it'd be quite a problem if such an extraordinarily troublesome, ultra-pragmatic, and dangerous doctrine were put into practice in a modern-day provincial town in Japan. An intermediary between here and there, Oshino managed to live up to his boast, selecting a location for our battle where not a soul would notice us even if we were to rampage around. I had to say the choice of a school's athletic field wasn't a bad choice at all. A school at night was like a blind spot in a way. A place that noisy and boisterous during the day undergoes a transformation at night and gets no one's attention. It seemed made for vampire slaying. Of course, we couldn't enter into the school building. With the teacher's room, the principal's room, and other targets for burglars inside, it was protected by a professional security system. However, as long as you could scale the school's gates, its athletic field was accessible. So, for a short period of time, there would be no witnesses. An excellent spot for a battle. But why Naotsuhai?
Because it's where you go to school.
Yeah, and I'm asking you why you chose the athletic field of the school I go to. I guess it's far away from any houses, so it might be a suitable battleground in that sense. But doesn't it seem obvious that it'll be hard for me to fight there?
Hard? You've got it wrong. It'll be easy. It'll be easy for you, Araragi. You're a brand new vampire who turned just the other day, and you'll be facing an expert vampire hunter. Wouldn't you want to go around on familiar terrain?
Go around? Is that some kind of vampire ability? I don't know how to use that.
Go around. With a locational advantage.
It wouldn't be fair otherwise, so he threw that in for free. That was how Oshino put it. I understood his point, but still, I didn't like the idea of doing something as strange as this at the high school I attended. Oh well. Let's see some superpowered school action then, quite literally this time. Sorry to keep you waiting. My greeting sounded somewhat moronic, but my opponent had arrived before me, so it was something I had to say, even if I wasn't late. In the center of the field sat the mountain of a man, cross-legged. With his mouth shut and his eyes closed, he nearly seemed to be in a state of Zen meditation.
Sir/M.
No, I didn't know what he said.
Ah, yes, the language of the land I am in.
He really was huge. It was like he had to be careful not to hit his head on the moon. He didn't have his flamberges? Those wavy greatswords? Not even one? What?
Do not misunderstand my brethren. I have not come here to slay you.
What was this guy trying to tell me now? I flinched into a battle stance. I mentally flipped through the index of Aikido from step 1, which now sat with the rest of my bag outside the gates. What moves could I use in a real fight?
I did not accede to the pronouncements of that man, that frivolous-looking man out of a desire to slay you.
If you're not here to slay me, then what? That frivolous-looking man. He had to be referring to Oshino. So he looks sleazy even to guys like Dramaturgy.
I hope to recruit you. I put this to you, why not don the garb of a vampire hunter like myself?
What the hell? Last time we met, you tried to chop me down, no questions asked. So why are you saying this now?
Episode and Guillotine Cutter were there at the time. I could not extend this kind of an invitation in the company of those two, but I would regret having to kill a being as rare as you, a thrall of Heart Underblade, the iron-blooded, hot-blooded, yet cold-blooded vampire.
If I join you, you'll return Kishot's right leg. Is that the deal?
You're quite courageous to call that woman Kishot, but your conjecture is incorrect. Your first job would surely be to kill Heart Underblade.
Then it's not happening. There wasn't any point in talking. In any case, I was going to turn back into a human. How could I become a kinslaying vampire? Think about who you're talking to.
I see. That is unfortunate. Truly unfortunate. I currently have 53 brethren, and you seemed fit to join them as someone whose mistress seems to have little control over him.
Little control over me? Was it true then? Had Kishot failed to make me her servant? 53, that's a pretty big number. If there really are that many vampire kinslayers, then I suppose Kishot was right. If I'd agreed, I'd have been Buddy No 54?
No, you would have become number 1 in no time. Incidentally, I am currently number 1.
Hun. I'd never taken him for some grunt, so I wasn't particularly surprised. If such a vampire was so eager to slay her Kishot, really had to be something. The iron-blooded, hot-blooded yet cold-blooded vampire, the aberration slayer. I see why you wanted to have me join you, paradoxically enough. But next time, try a little harder with the invitation, shape up, or you'd never pick up a girl. It wasn't as if I was endeavoring to imitate Oshino, but I tried delivering a sleazy line. It felt like the kind of moment where I needed to act cool.
Ah!
Of course the quip didn't land. How embarrassing. But this was my chance. Dramaturgy had probably left those wavy greatswords somewhere in order to recruit me. Although I got that, I was immortal. Blades were scary, period, so I was grateful for this turn of events. Dramaturgy's greatswords with which he must have had severed Kishot's right leg. Of the 4 severed limbs, the only wound that had looked smooth, defined. It actually seemed difficult to slice like that with a wavy edge, but if Dramaturgy didn't have them with him, it was an opportunity for me. The winds favored me, perhaps.
Then let us begin, pitiful boy. Thrall of Heart Underblade. You have no time to waste, correct?
Wait, before we do that, let's go over the conditions. We need to be on the same page.
Very well, then make sure we are.
If I win, you'll give Kissshot's right leg back to me. Right?
Only if you tell me Kissshot's location were I to win.
Fine by me.
Then it is fine with me too.
Let us get to it, he said, rotating an arm and striking at me. The sheer speed of it belied his massive physique, his fist barreling toward me with his whole weight behind it like a pro boxer's punch. I could see it. I could see it with my vampire eyes. But even if I could see it, there was nothing I could do about it. Ah. A moment later, my left arm was gone. It hadn't broken, nor had it been torn off. The impact of Dramaturgy's punch had blown it to smithereens. It wasn't a matter of pain. Fear had instantly overtaken my body. I mean, I'd just lost a fifth of it. Reflexively, and instinctively, I started to run away from Dramaturgy. But after no more than 2 steps, I tripped over my own feet and nearly fell. And it seemed to be a good thing that I had. A gigantic fist swooped through the air where my head had been only a moment earlier. I barely avoided tumbling over, supporting myself against the ground with my left hand. But my mind was racing. Left hand? Huh? My left arm should have been blown to bits, but it was there? Vampiric regeneration. But really, it worked that fast? While the fabric that had gone flying along with my left arm didn't regenerate together with it, my bare arm only emphasized the healing powers of vampiric flesh. I had tried out my physical strength, but I hadn't gone so far as to test my healing powers, so I was gobsmacked. Though upon further consideration, there was the time at the very beginning when I'd experienced pure hell after exposing my body to the sun, so there was nothing surprising about this level of recuperation.
What's wrong? Are you just going to run, Thrall of Heart Underblade?
Don't call me weird names. I began to calm down after seeing my left arm regenerate. All of the fear I felt vanished. Yes indeed. My opponent was a monster, but I was a monster too now. What was there to be afraid of? My athletic abilities had unmistakably improved as well. I'd always thought that you needed a trampoline or computer graphics in order to do a backflip. Then I struck a pose and faced Dramaturgy straight on for the first time.
Aha, so you're ready to make a stand.
Thanks to you, so I won't ask you to pay for the clothes you ruined. As I said this, I began to think. Dramaturgy. A vampire-slaying vampire. Kissshot had told me that all I needed was a good grasp of the characteristics of a vampire, if I remembered correctly. They were weak to the sun. They didn't like crosses. They didn't like silver bullets. They didn't like holy water. They didn't like garlic. They didn't like poison. They died if you stuck a stake through their heart. Those were the weaknesses, right? What other characteristics were there? Well, first and foremost, they sucked blood, which resulted in energy drain. They didn't have shadows and didn't show in mirrors. And indeed, even under the moonlight, Dramaturgy didn't have a shadow. Just like I didn't, canines or rather fangs. I didn't really notice them on Dramaturgy, who tended to keep his mouth shut in a straight line. And they were immortal. They had semi-permanent powers of regeneration. They had eyes that could see well even in the dark. There was also that bit about shape-changing, where they could turn their bodies into mist or darkness, among other things, as well as the healing powers of vampire blood. But none of it really seemed relevant at the moment, I thought rather belatedly. I didn't want to make light of Kissshot's advice, but since both Dramaturgy and I were vampires, it appeared as though everything, both our strengths and our weaknesses, canceled out. If I was immortal, then so was he. In that case, was it down to experience and raw ability? In terms of experience, he had to have a slight edge on me. Well, okay, maybe more than slight. I'd only read an Aikido manual on the way. So be it. Maybe Kissshot was rubbing off on me because I screamed an old-timey phrase that I never thought I'd utter during my lifetime and charged like a kamikaze at Dramaturgy.
I had expected some ruse. I commend you for your guilelessness.
Guileless. Or to put it another way, one note. No matter how massive his fist, no matter its astonishing speed, 3 in a row was pushing it. Well, it might have worked back when I was human, but now with a vampire's eyes, 3 times was enough for me to adapt. Forward. I ducked forward to evade his fist. Then, as his log-like arm followed a beat later, I grabbed the earthen pipe of an appendage. Using the momentum of my opponent's fist, and in one fluid motion, I transitioned into an arm lock. Aikido from step 1. Take the opponent's arm. Pull it toward you. Slam down your opponent as hard as you can. Going back over the words, they seemed a tad breezy for explaining a technique to a beginner. But it worked. The 7-foot-plus giant fell hard on the more or less unkempt field without so much as an attempt to break his fall. Well, he couldn't because I was making him fall. From there, I pressed down on his back with one knee and stretched his joints as far as they would go. How's that?
Clever by half. Guilelessness served you better. It seems you are still clinging to the common sense you acquired as a human. But I suppose that is only natural, I understand, as I was once a human too.
Wah! Cut the nonsense and surrender already. If you don't, I'll break this arm right now. Oops, wait a sec. I sounded exactly like a character who was about to have the tables turned on him. It smacked of a cue. Common sense I acquired as a human? Common sense as in my line of thought. Oh, right, of course. So what if I put an arm lock on him? What good would that do? I was going to break his arm? Really? And even if I did manage to break it, he was a vampire. Wouldn't it heal immediately? Shh. But that wasn't what dramaturgy meant either. I doubt I'd have been able to do anything even if I'd wised up sooner, but as it was, I only grasped the true meaning of his words after both of my hands, busy twisting his pipe-like arm, had been cleanly severed. Severed by him? No, I'd practically severed them myself, by gripping his hand which had turned into a wavy greatsword. Oh, Hermly? This time I did feel pain, real pain. Lacerating pain. I'd be using that figure of speech with some genuine feeling from now on. I involuntarily leapt back, distancing myself from dramaturgy's body. My 2 lopped-off hands disappeared before they hit the ground. I looked again to find them attached to my wrists. They had come back into existence. My physical regeneration didn't feel to me like I had grown new wrists. Like a lizard's tail, it was as if my hands had simply returned, and the severed ones disappeared. Or to be more accurate, it was like they'd evaporated. It was a convenient system, so to speak. Leaving my severed hands on the school's athletic field wasn't an option. Dramaturgy got back up slowly, unhurriedly, you might even say sluggishly. It was no surprise that it took him time, though. After all, both of his hands had turned into wavy greatswords. Shape-changing! Vampires could shape-change. This guy turned parts of his body into weapons. On that day, too, it may have been at night. No, I could see fairly well at night with my vampire eyes, so my lingering human common sense was to blame. I dismissed the possibility because it went against common sense. Putting his wavy greatswords away in order to recruit me had been an idyllic fantasy. The 2 greatswords had been one with dramaturgy.
What's wrong? Finished already.
Despite his advantage, his stern expression remained unchanged in fact. Having bared his blades, he looked to be getting serious only now. There was too much of a difference in experience. Too much of a gap in general. We were both vampires, but I could never be like him. His size, the length of his swords. Now that we were squaring off face to face, it seemed impossible even to approach him. His giant body alone must have given him 3 times my reach.
I asked if you're finished. Are you not going to answer me? Was that not the judo of this nation?
It was Aikido, but I wasn't good enough at it to be able to say that in reply. It had been a fluke, I wouldn't even be able to repeat it, so if he asked about any variations, I wouldn't know what to do. Damn it, why had I shown up empty-handed to begin with? I'd never imagined they were a part of his body, but I was quite aware that my opponent used greatswords. I should have come properly armed, too. If I'd only brought a cannon. Only? I didn't have those kinds of connections. Hold on a second. Maybe I did have a hand to play. In that case...
I see. So you've given up. Very well, then. I will go next. And I will keep on carving up your body until your powers of immortality expire, or you cry out for death.
Dramaturgy began to move, and so did I. But while he moved forward, I moved backward. I was making a retreat. In other words, I ran in the opposite direction from dramaturgy.
You would run?
But I hadn't taken flight, nor was I routed. I was strictly retreating in order to set up a reversal. A coherent plan had yet to take shape in my head, but I couldn't afford to hesitate. So be it. Indeed, it was somewhat inelegant, but I had no other hand to play. I had dramaturgy beat at sprinting speed, if nothing else. By my rough estimate, dramaturgy weighed over 400 pounds, and now that both of his arms had turned into those wavy greatswords, he could be closer to 650. No matter how fast his fists, it didn't mean that he could move fast. Punching was a question of shifting your body weight perfectly. While I was sure that he could run faster than a human, there was no way dramaturgy could match me in my pure body weight of 120 pounds. I had to use my advantage to its fullest. Still, I wasn't running away. And I wasn't fleeing at random. I had a destination in mind. It was about locational advantage. I wasn't the most serious of students, but I'd spent 2 years at this school, so I at least knew where to find the PE storage shed. I arrived at the shed having put a fair bit of distance between me and dramaturgy, still giving chase and kicked down its sliding steel door. I knew it would be locked, and even if it wasn't, I didn't have time to fiddle with the latch. And bingo! Yes, PE class at our school included baseball practice. I took one of the many balls from inside a cage and then tried to remember the contents of that guide to baseball that I bought together with the Aikido manual. Thank goodness I'd flipped through it after reading the Aikido manual just because I'd had some spare time. I would have been in trouble had my fingers itched for the classical music book instead. At wind up. At transfer your lower body strength to your upper body. At swing your arm through. Again, this was too breezy for a beginner. It seemed like I had no talent for picking out reference materials. Still, the ball flew in a straight line toward dramaturgy. As someone with no experience playing youth league baseball, this was of course my first time ever throwing a ball in this way. Unfortunately, baseball was an elective in PE class. I'd selected soccer, but as with the earlier Aikido technique, this was what they called beginner's luck. The hard ball landed right where dramaturgy's lungs were.
Gah!
Dramaturgy, who'd been charging toward me like a freight train, crouched over on the spot as the ball rolled away. He may have been a vampire, but his internal organs seemed to function like normal internal organs, and he was having trouble breathing. Come to think of it, a stake through the heart killed a vampire, so it was natural for the lungs to work as lungs. That meant an attack on the sensory organs would be effective too. Even in the face of immortality, there were ways. Okay, let's keep this up, I thought as I grabbed the next ball. I had a full cage's worth of them, an embarrassment of riches. But my control was an embarrassment as in poor. I seemed to have exhausted my beginner's luck, as the next 5 balls I threw didn't so much as graze dramaturgy's squatting body. One after the next, they dug into the ground next to him. They dug pretty deep, so much so that I needed to go over the field later with one of those heavy rollers or whatever the baseball team used. But even pitches with that kind of impact didn't serve their purpose if they missed. And it was such a big target too. How would I ever climb the pitcher's mound in the majors like this? Climbing Mount Everest seemed easier.
You seem to be a man who is too clever by half and guileless at the same time.
Dramaturgy stood while I kept at it. He began running toward me again.
But that too will only work once.
Dramaturgy and I were now 30 yards away from each other, or thereabouts. Considering his gait, he'd reach me in 3 seconds. In which case, being partway into the PE shed was a minus. Even if I wanted to run, I had nowhere to go. Out of desperation, half resigned, I threw what would surely be my last ball.
So long as I know they're coming, 1 or 2 balls as squishy as those will do nothing to stop me.
Dramaturgy was saying this and charging straight at me when the ball crashed into his face. The ball stopped him in his tracks. Not that his previous statement was mistaken. No need for a retraction, because the final ball I threw wasn't a squishy hardball. It was a hardball, almost a cannonball. The shot used in the shot put, gosh, who left it inside a cage for baseballs. This did deal some damage. Dramaturgy was covering his mouth with his 2 wavy great swords and groaning. Was it taking some time to heal? Didn't vampires heal wounds instantaneously like with my left arm and my hands? Was it the shot put? No. Why had I landed a hit with the shot put to begin with? Playing it back in my head, I seem to have thrown it with some grace if I do say so myself. But who normally threw a shot put like that? Why right, it's weight. I should have remembered upon kicking down the steel door. Having turned into a vampire, I had greater arm strength. A regular hardball used in baseball must have been too squishy and too light for me. After the bit of beginner's luck for the first one, that's why my aim was so erratic. Something like a shot put was just right. No, even a shot put was on the light side. In that case,
You!
before Dramaturgy could lift his face, I'd gone to the back of the shed and dragged out the concrete roller they used to smooth the field. The roller the baseball team used. Grabbing and lifting it with one hand, I wound up. If I can't even hit a big target, I guess I'll have to use a bigger ball. Then, transferring my lower strength to my upper body, swing my arm through. But the instant before I did, nothing had hit him yet, but Dramaturgy crouched down where he was, his wavy greatsword hands raised toward the sky, and I stopped myself from swinging my arm through at the very, very last moment, and instead, slammed the roller into the ground. A huge dent formed in the athletic field. I'd nearly crushed my own toes. What are you up to, Dramaturgy?
It is as it appears. I surrender. Smashed with that thing, with your strength, the damage would be tremendous. It would take me 2 full days to regenerate.
What?
You seem to have misunderstood something. Not many vampires have the ability to heal damage instantaneously. True, amongst vampires, I am on the weaker side when it comes to regeneration, but you belong to a wholly different category. After all, you are Heart Underblade's thrall.
Was that so? Still, I couldn't take Dramaturgy's words at face value, so I kept up my guard. I quietly reached for the roller I'd flung to the ground in the nick of time.
Did I not say that you were number one? In spite of the gap in raw ability, I thought my experience gave me a chance for now to beat you, but it seems impossible. Betting you is beyond me.
No, wait. While he had me beat in experience, I had him beat in raw ability? That wasn't how I saw it, and I still didn't get that sense.
Would you be satisfied then? If I said this, I will never lay my hands on you again, so please spare my life.
Dramaturgy said that without the slightest hint of a grin. The damage from the shot put appeared to have healed. He hardly seemed done for. Was pulling out now the mark of a pro, a professional, quitting while both of us were still fine. Kishot's right leg. You'll give it back?
Yes, I am keeping it hidden somewhere at the moment, but I will deliver it to that frivolous man as soon as I may. Is that enough to make you happy?
Very well.
Then we have a settlement.
I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, but they weren't. While a vampire's eyes could misrecognize, they couldn't be deceived. His body was melting away into the darkness of night, shape-changing, turning one's body into mist, and just like that, Dramaturgy disappeared. But after he had vanished completely, his voice echoed across the field. What is it?
Allow me to invite you once more. Will you not join us?
Ain't happening. That kind of thing doesn't interest me one bit. I've had my fill of superpowered school battles. There was no reply to my line. He seemed to have completely melted away into the dark. Would he keep his promise? I felt a bit anxious, but then reconsidered. It was to make that happen that Oshino had arranged this. And either way, this Dramaturgy vampire seemed like the type to keep his word. Guileless and straightforward. Another formerly human vampire, was he? Well, in that case, it would have been nice to talk to him a little more, part of me thought that. But nothing would have been more pointless. The two of us didn't mix. They were trying to slay me and kiss Kishot, and I wanted to get her limbs back from them. It was that simple. That takes care of the right leg. 1/4 of the way there. It had only taken a few minutes, but it felt like I'd lived 5 lifetimes. My body may have been immortal. But this was rough work. Rough work, but only 3/4 left. Right, time to tidy up and head home. It seemed that thanks to my powers of recovery once again, I wasn't physically tired at all. But I was exhausted mentally. Clean up the balls, then flatten the ground. But what would I do about the steel door on the PE shed? I'd kicked it down. Well, it couldn't be helped. I'd try my best to wait. So I guess I should start by cleaning up the balls I threw everywhere? And then, just as I lifted my face, I think I've already hammered this point home, but thanks to my vampire eyesight, I noticed someone in the shadows of the school building, far off on the other side of the athletic field. Someone? Who? It wasn't Dramaturgy. Could it be one of the remaining 2? Episode or guillotine cutter? No way. I was supposed to face the remaining 2 at a later date. In that case, could it be Oshino? Despite all his talk about being neutral, he was actually watching over me from the shadows, just like the hero's master in a boys' manga. I didn't remember ever agreeing to become his disciple. But the thought still made me a little happy. I even made such a mistake, but that someone wasn't Oshino either. I took a dozen or so steps closer at an angle to get a better view of the school building shadow, and finally my eyes made out the figure. Pupils that silently looked in my direction. It was Tsubasa Hanaka. What? Why was she here? She hadn't followed me, had she? Had she tailed me? Even after I'd chased her away so meanly, I was too confused to do anything and simply stood there like a statue. But despite the distance, Hanakawa seemed to realize that I'd noticed her and began walking my way. I could almost hear her footsteps. Ack. She was 3 times as scary as Dramaturgy. Why are girls so scary? Or did I feel that way because I was facing Hanakawa, a model student? Tsubasa Hanakawa, class presidents among class presidents.
What was that just now?
In the time it took for Hanakawa to reach me, I decided that my best course of action was to play dumb, but her tone suggested that she wouldn't let it go at that. She'd seen me. She'd probably seen everything. Not that I'd be in the clear if she'd only seen the last minute. I'd picked up that roller with one hand.
I went looking for you after that. I lost track for a bit, but then I found this bag in front of the school gates.
As Hanakawa said this, she held up her right hand to show me the very bag containing the Aikido manual, the baseball guide, and the book of classical music recommendations.
So I thought you might be inside school. I did have to climb over the gates, though.
Awfully aggressive for a model student. Still leaving the books outside the gates was a misstep, though I never imagined something that minor leading to this fix.
Hey, Araragi. I was too far away to see clearly, but
What's it have to do with you? It was all I could say. Damn it. Right when I thought I'd taken care of things for the time being by winning back Kishot's right leg and earned myself a breather, I had to do it again. I had to wound Hanakawa again. And why are you tailing me anyway? I don't get it. I told you not to follow me around. Stop pretending to be my friend just so you have an excuse to stick your nose in my business.
you're not the type to say that kind of thing, are you, Araragi?
Hanakawa's eyes were honestly frightening. They weren't cold eyes like Kishot's if I had to describe them. I'd call them probing. Eyes that bore a hole, that saw through you. Eyes that forced you to recognize how shallow you were.
I feel bad that I'm making you say these things. It must mean you're in such a tough spot that your only option is to say them, right?
Hanakawa held the bag in her right hand out toward me. I took it. If she was only here to deliver me some dropped items, our exchange would now come to an end.
I'm sorry for taking so long to notice, but I want to help if that's...
You're really pushy, you know that. You're reading too much into things. I was just bored of hanging out with you. I prefer to be alone.
Liar. You're not a misanthrope or the world-weary type, Araragi. I can figure that much out. At least you seemed to be having fun when you were talking to me.
Like I said, I was only after your fortune.
And like I said, my family isn't that rich.
Then I was only after your toddy.
I don't drink, and you shouldn't either.
Not what I meant to say. No, I'm telling you, I was only after your body.
Which is it, my toddy or my body?
Your body. Fine, then. I'll make up with you if you show me your panties again.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Hanakawa was utterly calm, unperturbed, not even moving an eyebrow. In one fluid motion, she turned up her school uniform skirt, showing me the underwear it hid inside. The deep gray article was made of a felt-like material. It had a simple design, featuring neither patterns nor decorations, but that served only to bring out the flavor of the material itself.
Is this okay? Can you see them all right? Do you want me to take off my blouse too?
Oh, I thought. Now, for the first time, I was finally meeting Hanakawa. We weren't passing by each other. We had met, head-on. Right. She was a cool person, but that wasn't all. She was a strong person. Compared to me, she wasn't even in the same league. I said some horrible things. I'm sorry. I bowed my head, bending forward as far as my body would let me. Hanakawa still had her skirt held up. But it should go without saying that I wasn't bowing my head in order to get a better view. It was to apologize to her. And to ask her, please be my friend. There was something I had to do before explaining the situation to Hanakawa, though, not to mention the fact that it was already far too late at night. I had her go home for the time being, with the promise that I'd tell her everything tomorrow night. I then went back to the abandoned cram school. Ashino was out, but Kishot was waiting in the second-floor classroom. I told her that I'd managed to get her right leg back for now.
Well done. But of course I should expect no less from my thrall. As one who has inherited my power, thou must have had no trouble handling the likes of dramaturgy.
I had plenty of trouble. He knows when to accept defeat, though.
Well, dramaturgy is the most understanding of those three. I do not mean to frighten thee, but it won't be the same with the other two.
Yeah? I'd bet. Episode. He even looked like bad news, with that gigantic cross slung over his shoulder. And then there was that priestly man, guillotine cutter. Whatever he wasn't showing was bad news, no doubt.
Still, take this moment to rejoice. Ye've drawn a sure step closer to humanity.
Have I really? If anything, I felt like I'd become less human. Dramaturgy had superhuman strength, but my powers of regeneration seemed to outdo his. Anyway, I wanted to ask you just for my own reference, how many times can I die?
A good question, and one we won't know the answer to until we try to find out.
I'd rather not. The two of us kept up our conversation, equal parts celebration and review, until before dawn. Around the time I finally began to feel sleepy, Oshino returned. He wore the same Hawaiian stuff as always. He did seem to own multiple shirts, but they uniformly featured psychedelic designs like it was a political statement of some sort. He was empty-handed when I met him at the crossroads, but at some point, he had obtained the bare minimum of daily sundries and supplies. He seemed to be no stranger to camping out. Speaking of which, your dress never seems to get any dirtier. How does that work?
Well, vampire clothes are almost a part of our bodies. He turned to mist along with his attire, did he not?
So his clothes are a part of him, just like those wavy greatswords.
Attire owes more to an ability to generate matter. At times I, too, wield a sword in battle. But unlike dramaturgy, I employ my powers of matter generation to do so, not those of transformation.
That's amazing. Where are you? Laws of conservation of energy and mass. Oh well. Something must have happened to them. And in due course, welcome back, Ashino?
I'm Ho-Ohm.
The man waved casually. A Boston bag in his hand. Could Kissshot's right leg be inside?
Good job, Araragi.
I didn't really do that much.
What are you talking about? You put in some hard work. I know, I was watching over you from the shadows.
You were?
Yep. So guess what? I also know that you made a girl pull up her own skirt.
I recalled feeling a bit happy when I'd mistaken Hanakawa hiding in the shadows of the school for Oshino. But now I only felt embarrassed. But he really was watching, huh? Still, why say that in front of Kissshot? Look, she's tilting her head disapprovingly. Ashino?
Oh, no need to worry. I was watching you from the front, so I couldn't see that girl's panties from my angle.
That's not what I was worried about.
You've got a good friend. Is she a classmate?
We're in different classes. But yeah, she's a friend. Her name is Tsubasa Hanakawa. She's a class president among class presidents. Huh. Ashino mumbled non-committally. In any case, you should properly explain the situation to any witnesses, especially her, since she seemed like a smart one. That was my plan. I don't know how to explain it, though.
There's always the option of pushing her away.
I've already tried, and failed.
Did you now? Well, you are dealing with a girl. There's no such thing as being too sensitive.
I don't think it matters if I'm dealing with a boy or a girl in this situation.
What's this? Now? Is that really your level of awareness? Unlike girls, boys don't come up with creative dance routines, do they?
Man, you say that like girls have more originality, but it's just that only they have a creative dance component in PE. What a way to judge me and my originality.
But Araragi, you're the one who be fretting because you can't dance when the story of our everyday lives gets turned into an anime.
Why would our everyday lives get turned into an anime?
Because a drama CD can't convey that wonderful face you make when you act the straight man.
Our everyday lives were a drama CD?
It'll be fun, though. It'll be like the ending of Demon Lord Hero Legend Wataru.
I don't think I was even born when that was on the air.
You say that, but I see your Kyocera phone. The prospect is so on your mind.
What sort of roundabout appeal am I making? But point taken, it was a mystery to us boys what the girls did during creative dance class. Honestly, I didn't have the first clue.
Well, being a man myself, I don't exactly know what they do either. But I bet they could never show to boys the kinds of immodest dances they...
What? Now you've got me interested.
Why else would those classes only be for girls?
I had a feeling he was on the wrong track, but it was also true that boys were always out on the athletic field during PE, when the girls were inside doing creative dance. Was that like quarantining? Oh, but Ashino, speaking of girls only, there's another thing about phys ed that makes me wonder. During health classes in middle school, there were just a couple of times when they split up the boys and the girls. These were lectures and had nothing to do with stamina and all. I wonder what the girls were learning then?
Araragi? That, I don't know. There are some things even I don't know.
Yup, I thought so.
Hey, why don't you ask that Tsubasa Hanakawa girl when you explain the situation to her? I bet she'll tell you.
Oh, that makes sense. Good idea. What was it that I was feeling? The air was buzzing with a faint degree of malice.
There, done chatting?
Oh, ha. You seem to be in good spirits too, Hot Underblade. Anything good happened to you lately? Sure it did.
Laughing, Ashino undid the zipper of his Boston bag. He then stuck his hand inside and pulled out Kissshot's right leg. It had been placed inside as is, not kept in a case or wrapped in plastic, just the bare leg stuffed inside, like something a sick murderer would do. It was an adult woman's leg, slender and pretty, neither bleeding nor rotting, no doubt because it was a vampire's leg. He really did give it back. Dramaturgy, the vampire-slaying vampire.
That's what a negotiator is for. I wish you'd at least put that much trust in me. There's nothing more important than a relationship based on trust, you know. There's no negotiating without it. They might be expert vampire hunters, but I'm a pro in my own right, and on such a point I'd never let them breach a contract here, Heart Underblade.
Ashino casually handed Kishot her right leg, and she took it from him. What a sight. Wait, what are you going to do? That leg doesn't match your current size. You aren't just swapping them, are you?
I do this.
Cradling her right leg with both arms, she opened wide and sunk her teeth into it. From there, she simply began eating, meat and bone together. Okay, no anime adaptation. A 10-year-old girl eating the right leg of an adult woman and apparently finding it pretty tasty.
Don't be standing there gaping. Fools, leave me to myself as I eat. Where are thy manners?
Whatever. It wasn't like I wanted to watch. Hardly needing the prodding, Oshino and I left the classroom, went out into the hallway, and closed the door without looking back. Oshino was snickering. What was so funny? All I could do was sigh. By the way, Oshino, while Kishot is taking her meal, there was something I wanted to ask you.
What is it?
You must already know if you were watching. The dramaturgy blew away my left arm, but I recovered instantly. So fast that recovered isn't the right word. So why didn't Kishot's limbs regenerate at all?
Don't you think it's because Heart Underblade had lost nearly all of her immortal force by the time you met her?
Well, yes, I did think of that. But when my hands were cut off, the old ones disappeared by the time I was healed. So I thought maybe Kishot's limbs might have disappeared too, but that wasn't the case either. I was wondering why. They didn't regenerate, and they didn't disappear.
That kid is a rare breed, Araragi. Those guys want her body intact to steal it and make it their own. Intact, but piece by piece. In other words, it wasn't her limbs that they took from her as much as her existence as a vampire. That's why the severed limbs neither regenerate nor disappear. It's an extremely bothersome thing they're doing. Denying her limbs the opportunity to disappear also blocks their regeneration. When you think about it, it's a very good way to disable an aberration slayer. Araragi, you ought to be careful too. It seems like Dramaturgy actually wanted you to join him, but you're Kishot's thrall. Who's to say they won't steal your body to make a specimen out of you?
Really?
Ha ha! You bought it. Well, it's a unique technique that can't be used very frequently. Don't worry, they wouldn't try, and it probably took all three of them to do it anyway. With only two of them left, the risk is already gone.
Which one do I face next? Episode or guillotine cutter?
The order is up to them, so I can't say for sure, but I think it'll be episode. I'll try to set things up as soon as I can. That way you won't have to waste any time going back to being human.
Ashino, am I really going to be able to become human again?
I don't see why not, as long as you can get back all of Heart Underblade's arms and legs. Isn't that what the kid said?
Well, that's the thing. Isn't there the possibility that Kishot is lying? I can see how she might be in order to get her limbs punga.
Hey,
I'd been poked in the head.
you shouldn't distrust her like that, poor girl.
But
I can't believe how ungrateful you are, saying that about someone who saved your life.
that's what Oshino said. Ungrateful? Saved my life? Did he just say that Kishot saved my life and not the other way around?
What's with that face, Araragi? Something good happened to you?
Don't talk like you see through me.
I do see through you, yes. You threw your life away for Kishot's sake. You presented your neck to her and her fangs. I think it's a wonderful thing you did, a beautiful act. But you know, Araragi, normally you would have died there.
My blood wrung dry. Not a single drop of my bodily fluids left. I was supposed to have died there. No, I did die there once, for certain.
But you came back to life as a vampire, of course. But you've been allowed to keep your sense of self.
Isn't that because there's a rule set in stone? If a vampire sucks your blood, you turn into a vampire, right? Yes, I may not have died for good there, but to say that she saved my life...
Set in stone? Where did you hear that one? It's just what she said, no? Haven't you considered the possibility that that's when she was being a liar?
Liar? Liar? That's when she was being a liar? But why tell such a lie?
I don't mean to take Heart Underblade's side, so I'll spill the beans here. There are two patterns when a vampire sucks a human's blood. It's either as a nutrition supply, in the way of eating, or it's a way to create a thrall and servant.
The two are completely distinct, Ashino said with a slight smile.
Well, a vampire does receive a bit of nourishment when creating a thrall, but if she'd sucked your blood simply to feed on it, she surely wouldn't be missing her skills to such a degree, even if fully recovering was still unlikely.
No, but that may have been true. Kishat had said as much under that street lamp. My body's worth of blood could tide her over. Her current figure, a 10-year-old girl's figure. Did that really tide her over? Did that really nourish her? She was like a school child without any lunch money.
At the moment, all I'm seeing are her powers of healing. It looks like she exhausted her skills just to form that body, and even lost her all-important power to suck blood.
What? Really?
Really. The form she's taken right now is something of an emergency use, only one. She's maintaining her vitality at the cost of sealing most of her skills. Must have been the most she could do with all 4 of her limbs severed. If she'd sucked your blood as simple food, she'd surely be in much better shape.
So, in order to get her limbs back from those 3, she had to make me her thrall, even if it meant temporarily losing most of her skills down to her ability to suck blood?
That's not it. You could look at it that way, and that's probably what she'd say if you asked her. But I think it'd be an excuse she made up after the fact. What I think is that she couldn't bring herself to kill you. Not only Heart Underblade, but vampires in general don't particularly like to create thralls. Even if they're dying, they'd rather not create a thrall just in order to survive. Heart Underblade, there's a heart under that blade. She seems to be a very different vampire from the one I'd heard about. Turning you into her thrall must have been the only way for her to stay alive without killing you.
Saved my life. If that was true, then indeed, Kisrat had saved my life. That had to be it. When Kisrat first called out to me, she wasn't planning on making me her thrall. She simply meant to nourish herself, to feed, to tide herself over. But, she said thank you. To a worthless human. To me for sticking out my neck.
When you woke up here, Heart Underblade was sleeping by your side, wasn't she? Using your arm as a pillow. Doesn't that mean she was nursing you around the clock?
Around the clock.
A fresh thrall always has the risk of going into a frenzy. She was on the lookout to make sure that didn't happen. Or maybe it would be better to say she was watching over you. And then, afterwards too, when you carelessly tossed yourself under the sun, she didn't hesitate to rush into the sunlight to save you, braving the risk of her own body evaporating as well.
That said, Ashino added, maybe it's close to the kind of affection humans feel for their pets, but at the very least, Heart Underblade is true to you. True, huh?
So you need to believe her. She'd be such a poor little thing if you didn't. Remember what I was saying? A relationship based on trust, Araragi. Don't worry, you'll be turning back into a human. In fact, the real trouble might come after that.
After that?
I'm telling you not to think of yourself as the victim here. Playing the victim doesn't sit well with me.
Those were harsh words. Unexpected ones too, putting me at a loss. Hey, I don't care how I sit with you, but I'm not trying to play the victim here.
That's good to hear. I'll keep it in mind, Araragi. But either way, looking at you from my perspective, you've been naive.
Excuse me?
Oops, I meant naive.
What a way to misspeak.
Every aberration has its reasons, they say. Araragi, you need to give some more thought to why you encountered a vampire.
Well, that'd be... by chance, no?
I'm sure it was by chance. What you need to think about is why that chance came about. But for now, maybe it's best if you prioritized getting back Heart Underblade's limbs. I'm not obligated to worry about you, Araragi, but the way you fought makes me a little concerned.
Well, I won't say you can count on me. To get back on topic, though, if that was what Oshino, an expert, said, then I supposed I didn't need to worry. Right. Kishat was arrogant, but she was true to me. She may call me her servant, but she also seemed to see me as someone who'd saved her life. In that case, I needed to respond in kind. Meeting trust with trust, a relationship based on trust demanded it.
So, do you think the kid is about done eating?
Yeah, I guess. I'll need to ask her about my next opponent episode. I opened the door to the classroom and went back inside. Kishat Acerola-Orion Heart Underblade, who'd looked like a 10-year-old girl, had transformed, sure enough, into looking like a 12-year-old girl. She'd grown. already bigger than just the last time I saw her.
So this girl's body grows each time she eats one of her stolen limbs?
The two of us were speaking immediately after sundown on April 1st. Kizumonogatari was still asleep. A vampire's day and night were reversed, and that applied to me as well. But feeling bad about dragging a model student like Hanakawa out of the house at too late of an hour, I'd tried and woken up early. There was a barrier placed around the abandoned cram school. That's what Ashino said? It not only hid my presence and kiss shots, it also made it difficult for regular people to find it without a guide apparently. That's why I had Hanakawa come close by so I could go pick her up after the sunset. Hanakawa was on time and present at the spot we'd agreed upon. As always, she was wearing her uniform.
Hiya.
Did you bring what I asked?
Yup. See?
Oh, thanks. This way then? Private property, no trespassing? We passed through a fence bearing the sign. The ruined cram school's fence was befittingly ruined and filled with holes, and headed inside the building. Ashino was out negotiating and Kishot was asleep. I had told Kishot that I'd be bringing Hanekawa, but she hadn't seemed particularly interested. Since our conversation might get pretty involved, maybe it was better to go to a different room, but I wanted Hanekawa to check out what Kishot looked like. That's why I decided to speak to Hanekawa in the room on the second floor that I usually spent my time in, with Kishot enjoying her beauty sleep right by us. Needless to say, the windows of the room were boarded up, and not even the light of the moon and stars filtered in. I was fine with my vampire eyes, but I'd arranged for a flashlight for Hanekawa, who had normal vision, which is to say, she'd gotten it herself. After a little bit of chit-chat, I'd been deprived of newspapers and TV since spring break started. I told Hanekawa the story up to that morning, and she listened with interest, nodding. A model student. Maybe her curiosity about the unknown exceeded most people's. I told her everything I could. I didn't want to hide anything. Even if it was the 1st of April, I didn't want to lie. And it was when I had finished telling Hanekawa about Kishot's growth that she said F memes.
So this girl's body grows each time she eats one of her stolen limbs. This girl might be an odd way to refer to a 500-year-old vampire, but is that the deal?
She seemed to have a decent grasp of the situation. Yes, I nodded. When she ate her right leg, from the knee down, she aged about 2 years, so, yeah, after recovering the rest of her arms and legs, she'll probably be back to her old body, and look like a 27-year-old. Well, to put it Lord Frieza style, she has 2 more transformations left, one for her right leg and one for both of her arms.
That does clarify it for me.
While she may have been a vampire, at first sight she was just a cute 12-year-old girl. She and I being together in an abandoned building had a real whiff of criminality about it. I just had to pray that Hanekawa wouldn't come to that conclusion.
So maybe it's my fault. You're running with a vampire.
Huh? What is? Why would she think that? While I said I didn't want to hide anything and told her everything I could, I wasn't a total idiot. Hadn't I skipped over the stuff about her panties and the dirty books? But as it turned out, I was fretting for no reason.
Rumors have a funny way of coming true, right? Especially for ghost stories and stuff. They say rumoring has a way of having them find their way to you.
Hun, but it's not like Oh, right. That day I'd heard a rumor from Hanekawa. A rumor about vampires. Walk around by yourself at night, and... But that doesn't make sense. You told me about the rumor, so you'd have to run into a vampire too.
I don't have to. It's probably just that your chances increase. Besides, I have, haven't I? You are Araragi.
Ah, right. I was a vampire too. So that was it. On my way to fighting dramaturgy, I'd happened to run into Hanekawa. Then and there, perhaps due to such a heightened probability. Every aberration has its reasons. The reason that I met a vampire...
There's another way of thinking about it, that the rumor actually precedes the aberration, that rumors cause them to be born. Like with oral traditions, you know?
I see. Are they rumored because they exist, or do they exist because they're rumored? It's like the chicken or the egg. Which of them tastes better?
I like eggs better.
I had meant it as a joke. A dud. You know the answers to everything, don't you?
Not everything. I just know what I know.
Is that so? Putting the talk about rumors aside. Hanekawa, yesterday, you were going out of your way to look for a vampire, if anything. That's when I'd gone nuts. I didn't get mad this time, of course. Why were you? Existence is greater than humans, was it? You said you wanted to talk to one, or something?
Well, it wasn't as if I was seriously looking for a vampire. I was stamping my feet for something that I know doesn't exist. More like, how do I say this? Maybe I've been going in circles and wanted a change in my life.
A change, eh? In my case, I'd gotten one, not only in my life but also in my biology. It really was too much. But a model student, a class president among class presidents, Tsubasa Hanekawa, feeling like she was going in circles, came as a bit of a surprise to me. Then again, maybe that was normal, she was human. As for me, I still felt lost even as a vampire. Actually, I felt a lot more lost.
It was just my way of trying to escape from reality.
I'd love to get back to reality myself.
I'm sure you'll be able to. Like I said, I want to help. But considering how outrageous the situation is, it doesn't feel like there's much I can do.
That's not true. Those clothes and daily essentials are a great help.
Oh, it's nothing. Why don't you hurry up and get changed then? Your clothes are a mess.
Gah.
Honestly, I was shocked when you showed up to meet me looking like that. Doesn't this Ashino person have clothes you could borrow?
All he owns are these Aloha shirts.
What's wrong with an Aloha shirt?
Maybe if they were Lhasa shirts. Not that I knew what it meant. In any case, I couldn't keep going around in the clothes I was wearing. It wouldn't be an issue if I could generate matter like Kishot, but it went without saying that I couldn't. Yeah, you're right. Still, it didn't feel right changing clothes in front of a girl. I'd have to take my pants off, too. On second thought, maybe there's no rush. Oh, I just realized something the previous night. I'd asked Hanekawa to buy me a change of clothes without giving it much thought, but my situation being what it was, didn't that mean not just shirts and trousers but underwear? What? I guess I could at least change my shirt. It was pretty full. Well, it did have more than clothes inside, but when I undid the zipper, the clothes were at the very top. Actually, underwear was at the very top.
Was medium okay? I got you both boxers and briefs.
Why bother? No, actually, this was my fault. It really was. How dim had I been? And because of that, Hanekawa had suffered the worst embarrassment, buying both boxers and briefs.
What's the matter? You're not going to change?
I will. It looked brand new, but it wasn't in a bag, and the tag had been taken off. Had Hanekawa washed and dried the clothes once after buying them? Why go so far? It was like I had the dirt on her or something. In any case, I took off my tattered shirt and began wriggling my arms through the sleeves of the plain shirt.
Wait a sec.
I stopped, but, I was kind of topless.
I knew it. I thought so yesterday too. But your body's a little different, Araragi.
Huh? But now that she mentioned it, was I a little more muscular? No, more than just a little. I had abs.
I knew it. Something seemed a bit off when I saw you from behind yesterday, so it was your muscles. You also seemed thinner, more cut.
Identifying boys she barely knew from behind Hanekawa, what are you? Really? That was the bigger question. Then,
Mumble, mumble.
Kishot seemed to have suddenly woken up. If you were wondering, when she grew, her clothes and hair changed along with her body. As a 10-year-old, she'd worn a fluffy dress and had short bobbed hair, but now that she was 12, she had long hair, and her dress looked a little more grown up.
Of course thy body has changed. You've become a vampire. Our powers of healing work to keep our bodies in optimal condition.
Huh?
Giz.
Having supplied that explanation, Kishot dozed off. Which was she? Awake? Or asleep? Still, it felt like she'd dropped a bombshell. Then again, maybe that's how it was. My fingernails hadn't grown since becoming a vampire, and I didn't have to bathe. I couldn't tell after only a week, but I doubted that my hair was growing either. So that was why. My new physique represented the ideal amount of muscle for my body and bone structure. And if you kept going, you arrived at the muscular heights of dramaturgy or turned parts of your body into weapons as an application of that ability. She went back to sleep.
Yeah, rising and shining doesn't seem to be her thing, and she's 500 years old?
According to the lady herself,
She didn't seem to notice me at all. Excuse me.
she began to slowly stroke my abs and chest. Uh-oh, I was getting mildly aroused. Was she being naughty or what?
You still feel the same as a human, but with subtly more muscle elasticity.
A simple case of intellectual curiosity. Right, of course. You say the same as a human, but have you touched other men's bodies?
No, never. You're right. I was speaking from imagination, not experience. I shouldn't do that. Hurry and put on that shirt.
Oh, okay. I put on the shirt. She said it was a medium, but it felt a little on the large side. I figured it wouldn't be a problem, though. I liked that it was a plain shirt, too.
So it fits.
Yeah. Thanks, or rather, sorry about that. I'll pay you back as soon as this is all over.
Forget about it. Been saving my New Year's gift money ever since I was little.
Don't use that kind of money on me. Cash I could reimburse, but not memories. What an unfathomable woman. Carelessly requesting something of her could have dire consequences.
There are 2 hoodies under that. Oh, were jeans okay for pants?
Yeah, ease of movement is what matters most.
I eyeballed the waist and inseam sizes, but just tell me if they're too tight or too short. I'll go buy another pair.
Note to self. Put up with it even if they're a little tight or short. While I wasn't changing into them at that moment, I decided to at least check the jeans and began rummaging around the bottom of the backpack. Then, I found a bag. It was a paper bag from that major bookstore. It felt like 10 or so books were inside. Huh? When I pulled it out, for no reason really, Hanakawa told me, "Oh, those are presents. You bought an Aikido book yesterday, right? The one that you left by the school gates. And judging by your story, you got it in order to fight that big person. Right? Well, yeah. So that was her appraisal of dramaturgy. Big person. She had some guts, didn't she?" In the end, the baseball guide I bought along with it came in handier.
The one you were reading when we met, right?
What are you getting at? Hanakawa nodded. Well, you were right to try and prepare in the face of a tough battle, but I also thought that you were going about it the wrong way. I don't disagree with you there. You mean cramming will only help so much. No one would spend years practicing if they could master it by flipping through a book. She had seen me the day before. My crude style of fighting. How much I relied on luck. How I just took things as they came.
Oh, no, that's not what I meant. Aikido and baseball are both things that humans do, right?
Well, I guess an arm lock was useless against dramaturgy, but if his region wasn't very good, breaking his arm might have had some effect.
You sound so rough. But that's not it either. This isn't about who's on the receiving end, but on the giving end. I'm talking about your side, Araragi.
Huh?
Aikido is a human fighting style and baseball is a human sport. Your strength is clearly greater than a human's right now, Araragi, so Aikido or baseball or anything of the sort seems like it would only end up limiting your strength.
Oh. She was right. In fact, a baseball was too light for me. The shot put was okay. It wasn't until I grabbed that roller that it felt right. All of my stats had been lifted at the same time, so it was hard for me to be aware of it. But as I was, human techniques might actually just hold me back.
So I think what you should be reading now are these.
It was manga. A straightforward, super-powered school action series, at that. A boy in a school uniform was on the cover.
I looked for one with a vampire high schooler as the protagonist, but I couldn't find one, so I went ahead and picked one where the main character is a boy who uses superpowers.
Went ahead and picked.
Just like this, you can probably now move, ignoring the laws.
Uh-huh. I was taken aback for a moment, but hold on. It might not be such a bad idea. Actually, it was a pretty good one. I was still clinging to the common sense I'd acquired as a human. According to dramaturgy, there was weight behind his words since he was a former human like me. And just like he said, I dug myself a hole during our battle because that sort of common sense had too much of a hold on me. I was able to do a backflip for crying out loud. Surely I could run up a wall. Oh, I see.
I did read through it. It's pretty fun.
I hadn't heard of the manga before, but it did look fun.
There's a fantasy novel that I'd personally recommend, but I thought manga might be the most immediately effective solution considering your goals. Learning visually will help you remember better too.
That's definitely true.
Well, try using those as your yardstick. After that, pick out what you think you'd like.
Thank you. And I had yet to tell Hanakawa that I needed to face episode and guillotine cutter after this. Talk about being prepared. Gosh, she was no ordinary girl.
Here, a bookstore gift card for then.
That's beyond prepared.
Would you have preferred cash?
I can't believe this. What was I? In any case, I gratefully received what Hanakawa was considerate enough to offer me, including the gift card. I was seriously broke. From buying too many books. You're a lifesaver, Hanakawa. I promise I'll make it up to you someday.
This is really all I can do.
All you can do? It's more than enough. Honestly, it was heartening, which, I supposed, also meant that I had been feeling disheartened. I couldn't call Ashino an ally. As for Kissat, this was really her business. Plus, she was a vampire. I hadn't expected to feel so relieved from talking to someone. No, it wasn't because I'd talked to just anyone, but to a friend. Thank you. I mean it.
Oh, stop it. That's what friends are for, right? Don't hesitate to let me know if there's anything else you want me to do, Araragi. This is about everything I can do at the moment, though.
Yeah, I'll be counting on you.
Oh, right. Do you want me to clean this classroom?
It looks like a total mess, she added. Well, the building was abandoned. No sooner than she'd spoken, Hanakawa began moving. But wait, I couldn't actually let her do this. It's fine. It was like this when we found it.
That's no reason to leave it a mess. We ought to start where we can, and... Hey, what's this?
For a moment, I didn't have any idea what it was either, but only for a moment. It was yet another bag from that major bookstore. But neither the one Hanakawa had brought, nor the one with the Aikido, baseball, and classical music books that I'd purchased the night before. But I remembered seeing it. And then I realized, yes, it was the bag with the 2 dirty books in it, the one I thought I'd thrown away on the first day of spring break.
Mumble, mumble.
It was Kissshot, sounding half asleep behind us.
I had forgotten to tell thee. That bag thou had so preciously clung to was on the side of the road, so I brought it here with me for thee.
Yeah, yo!
Goss.
Damn it. Back asleep. Oh. No. Hanakawa was staring at the books inside. A high school girl was staring at dirty books featuring high school girls?
When you encountered that vampire, you were on the way back from the bookstore, right? On March 25th, the night of the day we first ran into each other?
Wow. I couldn't believe how perceptive she was. But couldn't she be misunderstanding the situation in the worst possible way here?
Hee.
Hanakawa looked up and turned to me, grinning from ear to ear. The flashlight was illuminating her from directly below, and it felt like I was facing an aberration. She took one of the books from the bag and opened it to a random page. Of all things, it contained a stunningly idiotic special feature on bespectacled class presidents. She asked me in the kindest of purrs.
So, what's this?
Episode: a man with Sampaku eyes and a white traditional school uniform who carried on his shoulder with one hand a gigantic cross triple the size and the cube of the weight of his body. Apparently he was a vampire hunter. A man who slew vampires in order to collect bounties. A hitman, if you will. And to add to that, he was supposedly a half-vampire, hunter of, and half, though he could even look juvenile. Contrary to his appearance, he was an expert hunter of vampires who'd taken Kissshot's left leg. He sure is late. 3 days later, April 4th, 4, being homophones with death and an unlucky number in Japan, the date felt vaguely ominous to me, but I wasn't complaining about such trifles. I tried to check my wristwatch, only to realize that I'd forgotten to wear it. I thought I'd check my cell phone instead, but had forgotten it too. No good. I wasn't calm after all. It was fine, though like the vagabond he was, Mimoshino, the man I'd most want to contact in a tight spot. To hear him say it, though, it was just that he hadn't a clue when it came to gadgets. True, nothing seemed more far removed from yokai and aberrations in such as a cell phone. Either way, it was the night of April 4th. I had once again come to the athletic field of Naotsu Private High School at night. For round 2, of course. To fight episode the second of the 3 vampire hunters. I had been giving it a lot of thought over the past 3 days, but my ultimate decision was to show up empty-handed, like the time I battled dramaturgy. I'd accepted Hanakawa's view on the matter.
I think it would be better if you didn't have any weapons. I mean, a normal weapon couldn't handle your so-called vampiric strength. And even if we found one that could, what if the police pulled you over for a stop and frisk?
She was all too right, but bringing it up at this stage? Hey, if that's the deal, I think the authorities need to be stopping and frisking those 3 vampire hunters more than me.
But these people are professionals, aren't they? They must have the know-how to avoid that sort of thing.
Come to think of it, dramaturgy could even turn his body into mist. Plain human restrictions wouldn't hinder them. And so that's why I was barehanded, and though it felt like I hadn't learned my lesson from last time when I'd tried and failed to take on dramaturgy's dual-wielded wavy greatswords with my 2 empty hands, Hanakawa, her usual impressive self, had shared with me a number of observations she'd made, simply by watching the battle from the shadows of the school building. They were mostly red marks, but if I could put my experience to use this time, as usual, Kishot's advice wasn't very helpful. A flashback scene of how I saw it follows. A vampire hunter and a half-vampire well. Even I know that much vampire terminology. But couldn't you give me some more details, Kishot? Her body now a 12-year-old's. Kishot had this to say in reply. I forgot. She forgot. She was puffing her chest out as haughtily as ever, having gone from 10 to 12, which meant the onset of puberty. Her chest was budding, but it certainly wasn't a reply to be dispensing haughtily.
My powers of recall have weakened. Oh, had I already mentioned that?
I do appreciate the humor, but...
Wait one moment.
With that, Kishot held the fingers of her right hand in a straight line by her head and, without skipping a beat, dubbed the 4 nails into her temple. The blonde girl's tiny right hand vanished into her head down to the wrist. Blood began to spurt out, evaporating and disappearing each time.
One moment I remember, in no time.
Kishot proceeded to rummage around inside her own head, which is to say she was mushing around her brain. Not only blood, but a liquid like spinal fluid was also shooting out of the wound. Ew! No! Forget an anime adaptation twice over. What's more, maybe her fingers were getting caught up in her ocular muscles because her right eye made idiosyncratic movements like she was under demonic possession. Elle literally searching through her memories. I'd heard of some strange mnemonic devices before, but this took the cake. Kishot finally removed her reddened hand. She wore a refreshed smile.
I remember.
What? What did you remember?
As thou couldst surely tell from his attempts to win thee over, dramaturgy does not hunt vampires out of any sort of hatred. But episode is different. The fellow detests vampires.
He detests them? Why? He's half vampire, right? Well, he's a vampire hunter, so I didn't think he'd be on our side or anything.
No, though it is difficult to say decisively with such a small sample size, most half-vampires come to hate vampires.
Why?
Well, to put it simply, 'tis because half-vampires are not accepted into the world of vampires. Nor is that reason enough for them to be accepted into the human world. And so, they hate their vampire blood.
Wouldn't that make them hate humans just as much, though?
They do not think well of them, but what use is it hating those weaker than you? They may be but half vampire, but their strength is leagues beyond the average human's. Episode in particular seems to have a strong hatred of vampires. I've no knowledge of his upbringing, but I imagine I would prefer to stay ignorant of it. So do not assume that he will give up easily. While work may have driven dramaturgy, emotions move episode.
Huh. So, he was less of a pro than dramaturgy.
While a half-vampire's immortality is not as strong as a vampire's, their breed is notable for their near lack of vampiric weaknesses. They are even capable of walking in daylight and of casting shadows.
Huh. They cast shadows?
In other words, in exchange for half of their strengths, they eliminate nearly all of their weaknesses.
Ah. Okay, I shouldn't be too quick to draw conclusions, but him not having any weaknesses was kind of rough. So, how can I beat him?
Well, by being thy usual...
Thank you, Kishot, for your excessive faith in me. And thus, the night of the battle had come. For the past 3 days, I had been absorbed in manga. I couldn't blame any onlooker for thinking that I was goofing off of or at least slacking off, but I'd covered nearly every superpowered school action series in serialization. Oddly enough, reading manga out of necessity meant taking it slow, no matter how much of a page-turner it was, but every day, including that day, Hanakawa came to the abandoned cram school right after the sun set to bring me more manga. So it wasn't as if I could stop. I'd even received a gift card, but I was told that it'd be best if I kept from going outside too much. It was Oshino who told me that. On the night of April 1st, right after Hanakawa left to go home, Oshino returned, and that's when he told me. I regretted just missing my chance to introduce Hanakawa to him. But then, he could have been waiting for her to leave, so I didn't press the point.
I know I'm supposed to stay neutral here, but that's a pretty good idea. Lydia Missy, class president, really has her wits about her. But I think I might have to oppose the idea of you walking around outside when you don't even have a match. They might seize the chance to go after you.
Wait, but couldn't you negotiate that?
One of the tricks to negotiating is to not give away any opportunities for free. I don't think they'll try to lay their hands on you, but you wouldn't want them tailing you.
Even if they do, they can't find this place, right? While it didn't affect Kishishot and me, who lived within it, and barring Oshino, who'd put up the barrier in the first place, he'd said it was that effective.
Of course I'm confident about the barrier, but I want to squelch any risks.
Risks?
Missy, class president, is coming by again tomorrow, no? If you want a wider variety of titles to read, try asking her then. Oh, and while I think the barrier will cause her to get lost even on her second and third trips here, that'll just have to be part of the package.
But.
And of course I can't help you, so if she says no, you'll have to ask a different friend.
I didn't have other friends. I had no choice but to rely on Hanakawa.
Oh, and let me borrow them when you're done.
With that obnoxious parting remark, Oshino left. He'd gone back out only minutes after coming home. When did the guy sleep? Anyway, I saw him lying around often enough, but I couldn't remember him ever sleeping. Was he hustling that much with his negotiations? In that case, I suppose I could at least let him borrow some manga. For her part, Hanakawa continued to be really cool. When I asked her during her visit to the abandoned cram school the next day, the 2nd of April, she agreed to be my shopper right away. For 3 days straight, until today, the 4th of April, she'd gone and bought for me her recommended manga and my requested manga. She was way too cool.
Do your best, all right?
Even today, as I left the school for the first time in 3 days, she sent me off with those encouraging words, simple words that touched me. Geez, if I do get to turn back into a human, how much thanking am I going to be doing? At that moment, I was missing the mark completely. Even at that point, the strength of the woman called Tsubasa Hanakawa, but also her precariousness, hadn't registered with me. I wonder if she's gotten home by now. Just as I muttered those painfully idyllic words, considering later developments, episode finally appeared. Appeared on the athletic field of Naotsu Private High School. Appeared like a cloud of mist. A vampire hunter. A half-vampire. No weaknesses as a vampire, yet though halved and dabbed with the powers of a vampire. A somewhat frail-looking man with sanpaku eyes. White traditional school uniform. He could look juvenile, but the gigantic cross he slung over his shoulder with one hand worked to dash that impression. Just like the other day, he wore a faint smile and glared sharply at me. Episode 4.
Gotta love it. Cracks me up, it really does old dramaturgy finding himself on the wrong end of a hunt going after a brat like you. How careless could he have been? I hate all vampires. Even the ones that are vampire hunters, but I'd at least thought highly of old dramaturgy.
No shortage of hostility or malice. On top of it, he was making light of me. Well, if he hated both vampires and humans, that would make me, a former human and a fresh vampire, his most hated type of all.
So? What am I supposed to do, brat?
Supposed to do?
We're about to have a match, yeah? What sort of match will it be? It doesn't have to be violent. I feel like I could beat the likes of you at anything.
Sorry. If you take away the fact that I'm Kishot's thrall, I'm just a plain human, even a washout. The only way I could face you is as a vampire against a vampire hunter. The only other thing I could see myself beating you in is rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah? Gotta love that.
I seriously made him laugh. Episode said,
You're being awful timid, aren't you? I've hunted my fair share of formerly human vampires, but they were all more cocky, you know? Like they'd become omnipotent. They were acting like they were gonna rule the world when all they'd gained were the powers of a mosquito. Gotta love it.
Maybe he was making a point of speaking the language of the land. but it felt really weird for a man who carried such a menacing cross to be saying, "Gotta love it," over and over, whatever point he thought he was making.
Of course, I brought him all back down to reality. There doesn't seem to be any need to do that with you, though saves me some work. So you get a special treat.
Maybe he was winking?
I'll kill you without doing any permanent damage.
You used that line before.
It's my trademark line. Gotta love it, huh? If you're gonna imitate me, don't just copy it, make it your own.
Saying this, he held out his hand, the one he wasn't using to support the cross. A handshake? Was this a pre-match handshake? Maybe he was surprisingly polite in that way? Wondering, I reached to shake his hand, but just as I did, Episode quickly moved his into the shape of a pair of scissors.
There, I win. You can't even beat me in rock, paper, scissors as a vampire hunter fighting you as a vampire. I'd win too.
People like Ashino make me uncomfortable, but people like you I hate.
Hey, if you're saying that about me, you can't duke it out with Guillotine Cutter. Even I get a little creeped out by how nasty he is. But lucky for you, he'll be beating you here tonight so you won't have to face him.
You're pretty confident.
Sure. But I agree with you. That bastard Mimo Shino is a
handful. Gotta love this little farce he set up, whether it's formerly human vampires or true blue ones. I've never had to fight this fair and square.
You know the conditions.
Yeah, if I win, you tell me where Heart Underblade is, and if by some freak chance you win, I give you her left leg back. Have I got it down?
Yup, that's it.
By the way, do you actually know what those conditions mean?
When I nodded, Episode continued with a grin. They rule out killing each other. I can't kill you if I want you to tell me where Heart Underblade is, and if you want that woman's left leg back, you won't be killing me either. It may seem like a rough and tumble way to settle things, but it draws the line at killing. How pacifist.
A match, that's how Ashino I put it. Not a fight to the death, but a match.
And you're right. Old Dramaturgy, Guillotine Cutter, and I are all professionals. This is the only way you can win. We've managed to choose the single one.
Was that true? Was that what he meant by balance? Did that sleazy man think through all that in putting together these matches? As a neutral negotiator. To the tune of 2 million yen.
Of course, if I knew where Kishat, Acerola-Orion, and Heart Underblade was, I'd kill you and her both once again, without doing any permanent damage. Episode said, laughing, I'm warning you, don't think I'll go easy. I hate picking on the weak, but I love picking on the evil.
Am I evil?
Of course you are. You're a monster.
Quote, Arn quote, T-U? Aren't you one too? But I couldn't say so. He was only half that.
Huh? Aren't I what? If there's something you want to say, spit it out.
No, it's nothing. There's nothing I want to say. Let's get started.
Yeah, let's end this.
And with that, the prologue came to an end. In contrast to the time I faced dramaturgy, I was the one to make the first move above all. I was determined to act first. I lacked actual battle experience. As soon as I was on the defensive, I'd be thrown off balance and lose myself. I had to try to attack, at least. Exactly as I had learned in a manga, I stepped forward and unleashed a punch with all my body weight behind it. But all it met was air. Or more precisely, all it met was mist. Episode had turned his body to mist in the blink of an eye, and you can't punch mist not to any effect. I staggered ahead, pulled forward by my arm that now traveled with an awkward amount of momentum. Oops, he's going to counterattack, I thought and readied myself, but he was unable to harm me either, transformed into mist as he was.
Sorry, but you easily outclass me in terms of raw ability being a thrall of the Aberration Slayer. I don't intend to fight a close-range battle.
Episode, still a cloud of mist, cross and all, said, before returning to his original body, a significant distance away from me. The cross returned too. Since it had turned into mist with him? Was it a part of his body? Just like with dramaturgy? No, something was different. It seemed to work more like clothes, both dramaturgies and Kishat's. What are you thinking of doing from all the way over there?
This!
Episode said, hurling that giant cross in my direction. Carelessly, without getting into anything remotely like a pitching form. Unlike me against dramaturgy, he hurled it with sheer force. It caught me completely by surprise. I never imagined he'd throw that giant cross. 3 times his own size, sure, I did almost throw the roller at dramaturgy, but what kind of vampire hunter tossed his cross? So little faith. I'd figured the cross was a weapon, but I thought he was going to use it like a broad axe. Ack. Ack. I barely got out of its way. And when I did, I felt like kicking myself. Stupid me, hadn't I learned anything at all, there was no need for me to dodge attacks. Given my powers of recovery as Kishot's thrall, I could heal myself in moments, and my plan was to use that fact to my advantage. But thanks again to the common sense I'd acquired as a human, I could not but jump out of the way of what my vampire eyes were able to see. Yet this time it worked in my favor. The cross I thought I dodged had barely grazed my right shoulder, and a moment later my shoulder began to burn. It was engulfed in flames. It evaporated. Almost like the time I'd exposed myself to the sun fried to the sun. See? Cross. I mean, it was totally a vampire's weak point. Even I knew that much. Episode had been carrying it all too naturally, and its presence had been so overwhelming that I'd been paradoxically blind to the factor, rather, because its sight had caused me no problems whatsoever. I disregarded that fact. Now I understood. Episode being a half-vampire and not having a vampire's weaknesses also meant he was fine around crosses. Crosses. A giant cross. Since seeing it appeared to do nothing, it must have been a weapon whose effect only manifested itself upon direct contact. Its tremendous effect. My skin had evaporated and it wasn't regenerating. No, it wasn't not regenerating, just regenerating at an abnormally slow speed. Even my powers of recovery as Kishot's thrall couldn't keep up. In that case, it was even worse than the sun. Because it involved direct contact, the effect was amplified. Amir Grace had me like this. What would happen if it hit me for real? While I was worrying about my wound, Episode had turned his body to mist once more, and was moving while in that form. I was convinced that he'd take the opportunity to press his attack, but exactly as he'd declared earlier, Episode wasn't going to close in on me. Where he did go was to the gigantic cross he'd just hurled. Having grazed the tip of my shoulder and flown another 30 feet or so, the weapon had stabbed half its length into the athletic field. Episode restored his body near it, then pulled out the buried cross.
That reminds me. When you faced old Dramaturgy, you threw things at him from a distance too, a good idea. If I ever had to go at it with a character like him, I'd probably do the same. Like this.
Episode said, before throwing the cross again, in my direction. This time, I dodged it cleanly, but it didn't mean I could relax. That's because at that moment, I perfectly understood Episode's tactic at long last, my previous fight with Dramaturgy. The red marks from Hanakawa, who'd been watching, came down to 2 points. What if your opponent tried doing the same thing to you? That was number 1. If that big person with his brawn had caught the shot put or the roller you'd sent his way and thrown it back at you, what were you going to do? As for number 2, the scariest thing with long-distance attacks is running out of ammo. You're throwing your weapon, so even with a full cage of balls, throwing them thoughtlessly isn't ideal. What Episode was now doing to me, a vampire masterfully avoided both of those red marks. For one thing, he was throwing that cross. No matter what, I wouldn't be able to throw the cross back at him. How was I supposed to hurl something that I couldn't even touch? The moment I touched it, that body part would evaporate. Furthermore, there was no risk of him running out of ammo. He could turn to mist, then go get the cross he'd thrown. Half vampire. He could touch crosses fine, and he could turn his body into mist. Making the most of his own strengths, he was also exploiting the weaknesses.
Gotta love it.
As if to confirm my hypothesis, once again Episode reconstructed his body by the cross sticking out of the ground, and yanked it out.
I'll just whittle you down. Please don't mess up dodging it and take a direct hit to the heart. I can't have you actually dying on me.
He threw the cross mid-sentence as though to take me by surprise. I could dodge it probably because, as he said, I outclassed him in raw ability. While a half-vampire's arms could generate a fair amount of velocity, they were still no match for a full vampire's vision and burst of speed. But true at this rate, he could whittle me down. I had no hand to play. The superpowered school battles I'd read over the past 3 days didn't cover this development. I turned around. Unsurprisingly, the cross was sticking out of the ground. It almost looked like a gravestone, a giant cross sticking out of the athletic field. Then, his body manifested next to it.
You could surrender too. Not that I wouldn't just slaughter you tomorrow instead. I don't care if you think I'm being repetitive or uncreative. I'll kill you using the exact same method. There isn't a thing a vampire can do about its weakness to crosses, after all.
He was a professional. While he may have been moved by emotions, he was still a pro. I looked at the shoulder wound I'd suffered at the outset. It still wasn't done healing, and the pain coming from it was still extreme. No hand to play. From the get-go, outside of a quick face-off, there was no way, Given my total lack of experience, I was going to defeat a seasoned opponent. If he was going to take his time like this, there was nothing I could do. I was done for then. I could run to the PE storage shed. But why throw shot puts and rollers against an opponent whose body was missed? How was I to strike back against an opponent I couldn't damage with physical strikes? Just as I was coming to an oddly calm judgment, that fear had fixed my body in place, and that I probably wouldn't be able to dodge Episode's next attack, I heard a loud voice.
Araragi.
No auditory hallucination could be that loud, and upon looking in the voice's direction, who do I find but, or actually, I already knew who it was after all the conversations we'd had. It was Tsubasa Hanekawa. She'd appeared from out of the school building shadows. Had she been hiding there, just like the other day? Ridiculous. Hanekawa had gone home.
You can't give up yet. The opponent turns into mist. He turns into mist. So that means...
Quote, comma dot, gotta love it.
Episode didn't even seem to hesitate as he threw the giant cross he'd readied towards me in Hanekawa's direction. Huh? Why does such a thing, the bastard... Hanekawa! I'd heard that Hanekawa's reflexes were by no means poor. She was a model student. Even her PE scores were appropriately off the charts, but, of course, within the bounds of human common sense. Needless to say, for a vampire, she was no match even for a half-vampire. She wasn't blessed with the necessary vision or burst of speed to dodge the cross and barely managed to get half a step out of its way. One corner of the cross gouged her flank. Naturally, since she wasn't a vampire, she neither burst into flames nor evaporated from coming in contact with the cross. But the giant crucifix was still a hefty mass of silver. What was a soft human flank to it? I ran over to Hanekawa using every ounce of strength I had in my legs. It felt like I was able to reach her in a split second, and in fact, I was able to catch her before she fell backward to the ground. But it was still all too late. Hanekawa's uniform was torn, her skin was torn, her muscles were torn, her ribs were torn, her organs were torn. Crimson blood gushed out from her and wouldn't stop. The wound was simply too big to stop the bleeding. Naturally, neither the pieces of flesh that had scattered from her body nor the flowing blood evaporated. It just seeped into the field, taking its time, staining it red. Hanekawa, 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 Hanekawa. She laughed bashfully. In this situation, as if she were embarrassed that I'd seen her organs. A shy smile.
Be quiet, Araragi.
You earphone. Hanekawa's complexion was growing worse and worse, but she didn't let her smile fade.
She only continued to smile as she added, "Forgot your phone, didn't you? I came to give it to you."
What? Who cares about a phone? But Hanekawa had to know that too. This bit about my phone was just an excuse for her. Plain worried, she must have come here instead of going home. And unable to stand by and watch any longer, she'd showed herself. She had to have known how dangerous that was.
Get it together. You're dealing with mist. Though the ground grew redder and redder, Hanekawa's tone remained firm. Mist, which means water.
Hanekawa?
Araragi. Her voice still firm. She slowly began to shut her eyes. What's your long jump record, roughly?
As if on cue, Hanekawa's body suddenly grew heavy. But she'd lost so much blood. Did human beings grow so heavy just from losing consciousness? In that case, what happened when they lost their lives?
Ha! Gotta love it. How long are you going to keep me waiting?
When I saw him, Episode had already picked up the giant cross that had pierced Hanekawa and had it readied in my direction.
If you don't move, that girl's body is only going to take more damage.
You!
Let me just say that you're the one who broke our promise, Thrall of the Aberration Slayer. This was supposed to be one-on-one, but I'll agree to call it even since I laid my hands on a third party.
Hanekawa is a normal human. She wouldn't have counted. What could she have done? How could you, to a normal human? Or are humans your enemies as well? More than targets of hatred but enemies? Not just vampires but humans too. Still, why lay his hands on Hanekawa, even the advice she'd given me? In a firm tone to the very end before she faded into unconsciousness, sadly passed over my long jump. Oh, never mind, I understood. Yes, my locational advantage. I take it back. Hanekawa did count. Now I could beat him.
Rah!
I screamed with all my might and charged. Having gently laid her body on the ground, I was taking Hanekawa's suggestion and acting on it immediately without so much as revising it. I drew a straight line from episode's current location to that place dash and came to a halt atop it. It was at the exact same time that episode hurled the giant cross in my direction. I'd made it. Or no, not yet. The conditions wouldn't be met unless I dodged the cross. Instead of leaping out of its way, I ducked and passing above my head, the cross took a tuft of my hair with it. Continuing along its path, the cross pierced that place.
What, really? You get mad, but you're just gonna run away? Gah! Lame to the bitter end! Gotta love you!
Wasting no time, episode turned his body to mist and chased after the cross. But I wasn't idly staying where I was. Still crouched, I used my knees like a spring and leapt up into the air. The impact from this didn't simply cause the field to sink and it cracked. I'd have to flatten it back out later again. But now wasn't the time to be worrying about that. It was my first time attempting to maintain my posture in midair, and it was fairly hard. A vampire's powerful leap, I had probably jumped about 60 feet up, and the same distance forward 16. Exactly what I had aimed for. That place is where I landed. That place, like the PE storage shed, I couldn't not know about it. Having attended the school and taken PE classes for 2 years. Namely, the sand pit at the edge of the field, I landed there. With a long jump, though without a running start. Not that I needed one. Either way, it was undeniably a long jump. I landed right by the cross buried deep in the sand once again, just as episode reached the pit.
Gotta love it. That's some real power, but you think such a sloppy kick would hit me when I'm a cloud of mist?
Episode laughed, his body still transformed into mist, when it was no time for him to be laughing. You're mist, water, in other words. What would happen if I dumped sand on you? Long jumps sent up magnificent sprays of sand when you landed. Even a regular one, but this was a vampire's long jump. Nearly all the sand held by the pit danced up from the sheer impact of the landing. Prior to this, the cross thrown by episode piercing the pit had whipped sand into the air. My landing there dealt the final blow. Indeed, episode's body manifested. Just as Hanekawa's blood seeped into the ground, one might say not as an intentional act, but as a simple natural phenomenon, episode showed himself.
What?
Aha! Taking advantage of episode's bewilderment, I sprang on his frail-looking body, and as the flying sand began to rain down on us, I used my full weight to pin him down. I was sitting on episode's back, but he still writhed and resisted. I continued to hold him down by force. I held him down and strangled his neck. Episode wouldn't be able to turn his body into mist for a while. Then me with my superior raw ability would win. Me. I'd kill him. There was another me, detached and elsewhere, observing me as my mind went blank, completely blank. That I had become a vampire, that I was facing a half-vampire. The stuff about Kishot's left leg. All of it disappeared from my mind. Just Hanekawa's organs. They stuck in my blank mind, and that was why. I had to do it to him. This guy, I had to kill him.
Okay, enough.
Right then, a hand landed softly on my shoulder.
Keep going, and you won't be a human anymore.
I turned around, my hand still on episode's neck, to find the man in the Hawaiian shirt, Meme Ashino. As sand rained down, he just stood in it. For dramaturgy, as well he said he'd been watching from somewhere. He must have been doing so this time too. I'd completely forgotten, but in that case... You could have stopped Hanekawa.
Don't yell. So spirited, Araragi. Something good happened to you today.
Even at a time like this, Ashino laughed. He wore an obnoxious smile.
Well, I'm sorry to dampen your spirits, but the fight's been decided. Just look, he's passed out.
What? I only noticed after he told me. Episode's eyes had rolled back in his head. I let go of him, startled, but clear impressions of my fingers remained on his throat. What had I been about to do? Had I been trying to kill the guy, this half-vampire, half-human guy? But Hanekawa.
Yeah, I saw.
You saw? Why didn't you stop her?
It's not included in the bill. I've only taken on negotiating with 3 vampire hunters. Anything beyond that requires a separate fee. I can't get mixed up with ordinary people.
2 million his fee, his compensation, the balance. Then tell me that from the beginning. If you had EB-S.
You would have paid another 2 million yen as Missy class president's fee.
2 million! I would have paid 3!
How stout of you.
You're joking around at a time like this, Oshino? What's your deal?
The one you've just proposed, Araragi. We have a deal. 3 million yen. I'll give you a hint then. Try using your head, Araragi. What's that immortal body of yours for?
Huh?
You're right. A lone human inserting herself into a battle between a vampire and a half-vampire is no call for murder. That's going too far, so I'll use my additional fee to teach you something neat. You shouldn't be strangling his neck here. Try to remember.
Remember? What? I didn't have the time to be asking myself. Like Kishot had done earlier, I flattened my fingers and thrust them into my temple. So what if we never see an anime adaptation? I fiddled around inside my brain like mad, sensing every nauseating bit of blood, spinal fluid, and cerebral tissue until I felt sick. And then, soon enough I remembered. A vampire characteristic. I made my decision on the spot. With my hand still stuck in my head, I left Oshino and Episo behind Pyendo's himself. 5 minutes. If no oxygen reached the brain for 5 minutes, it stopped functioning, but that meant if I made it before then it would do. Even if her heart had stopped, it would do. Not even 3 minutes had passed. I pulled my fingers out from my temple, and then I dripped the blood stuck to the hand into Hanekawa's gouged out flank, her oversized wound. Yes, Kishot had told me. Vampire blood has the power to heal, and in this case it was my blood, that of the thrall of the iron-blooded, hot-blooded, yet cold-blooded vampire Kishot Acerola-Orion Hard-Earned Blade. Of course, being a vampire, my blood evaporated almost as soon as it left my body, and I had to wound myself over and over to keep bleeding, but as I did so, it happened before my eyes. Hanekawa's wound began to heal. Her organs regenerated, her bones regenerated, her muscles regenerated, her skin regenerated, and finally she returned back to the way she was, with hardly a scar left. It didn't even look like regen. I tried touching gingerly. I stroked Hanekawa's flank, pale, gently sloping, less fleshy than her age warranted. It was so soft and smooth that I was afraid it might crumble if I pressed too hard, but for all that, it existed, without a doubt. Ah! All at once, the emotions that I had been stifling began to flow. My heart was brimming with them all of a sudden. Ha, Hanekawa! I clung to Hanekawa's abdomen with everything I had, even though I'd end up back where we started if I destroyed her slender body by hugging it with a vampire's strength.
Tatino basso virgola punto A-R-A.
Hanekawa said abruptly, having regained consciousness. No, she seemed to have come to a little sooner.
Araragi, why are you rubbing your cheek against my stomach and so fondly too? Also, my uniform is torn. Should I chalk that up to you?
They say people didn't always remember the moments before they lost consciousness, and that seemed to be the case here with Hanekawa. Forget her uniform, her internal organs had been torn. My bad, Hanekawa. She was alive, and I just wanted to feel it. Stay still for a bit more. It was probably due to the difference in volume between her right leg, which had been severed at the knee, and her left leg, which she'd lost whole. The change Kishot underwent after consuming her left leg was a dramatic one. Her going from looking like a 10-year-old to a 12-year-old had been a surprise yet. Despite already knowing that her body would change, I think I was even more surprised this time around. Having recovered her left leg, Kishot suddenly grew to the point where she looked roughly the same age as me. A 17-year-old, she may have had me beaten height. Of course, between 12 and 17, from puberty to adolescence, is a period when appearances change the most amongst humans, too. But to give a specific example of her growth, her breast size had become something else. If she puffed her chest out with pride as she'd been doing, it'd be almost frightening now. Her face also looked far more grown up, and accordingly, the design of her dress looked more chic. Her hair had grown even longer, and was tied into a ponytail. Such stunning results. True, whatever form she took, Kishot was actually 500 years old. She sounded pleased. Just like when she'd gotten her right leg back, Kishot didn't bother trying to hide her feelings of satisfaction or joy, which made me, who worked as her limbs, happy as well. She made it feel worthwhile.
My body feels quite a bit better. I dare say that my immortality has merely returned.
Oh, so are you at a point where you might, take care of the next battle?